Tonight's meeting, it's 5:36. Madam City Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mayor Callie Krebs.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Robert Parkhurst.
Present.
Councilmember Edward Garcia.
Present.
Councilmember Jean Goss.
Here.
And Councilmember Christine Lowe.
Present.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum this evening.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Goss, would you like to lead us in the pledge and inspiration?
I would. Please rise if you're able. Face the flag. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, this is the inspiration part of my talk, and I've found a few things that I find inspirational, at least positive. So I'd like to kick the meeting off with some pieces of information in that vein. According to a recent article in The Guardian, a study was published in the Journal of Technology, Mind, and Behavior. This study describes how two professors at Tilburg University in the Netherlands analyzed data collected through interviews involving about 1,000 people each year from 168 countries as part of the Gallup poll. The question was, does the internet detract from our well-being? The team analyzed data from 2006 to 2021, encompassing about 2.4 million participants aged 15 and above. The results reveal that internet access, mobile internet access, and use generally predicted higher measures of different aspects of well-being, with 84.9% of associations between internet connectivity and well-being positive, 0.4% negative, and 14.7% not statistically significant. The study was not able to prove cause and effect, but the team found measures of life satisfaction were 8.5% higher for those who had internet access. That kind of goes against, I think, some of the popular imagination, and I'm not sure this is the last word, but certainly a positive and a hopeful piece of information. Another thing, as a fisherman, and I just more attend to these things, I suppose, than other people, I've been kind of concerned about all the loss of fisheries across the planet in recent decades. Then I stumbled on an article in the Associated Press that reports the number of fish on the government's overfishing list sunk to a new low last year in a sign of healthy U.S. fisheries. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration released an updated analysis of American fisheries late last week in its annual status, quote-unquote, status of the stocks report, which provides an assessment of the populations of the seafood species fishermen catch and customers buy. The report states that 94% of fish stocks are not subject to overfishing, which is slightly better than a year ago. The U.S. was able to remove several important fish stocks from the overfishing list, the NOAA said. They include the Gulf of Maine and Cape Hatteras stock of Atlantic mackerel and the Gulf of Mexico stock of Kubera red snapper. According to Rick Spinrad, NOAA administrator, quote, by ending overfishing and rebuilding stocks, we are strengthening the value of U.S. fisheries to the economy, our communities, and marine ecosystems, quote unquote. And finally, this one is about life expectancy. Life expectancy is going down, right? Nope. According to CDC, life expectancy is up. The report marks a notable reversal. People born in the U.S. in 2022 can expect to live 77.5 years, an increase from 76.4 years in 2021. Life expectancy had dropped in 2020 and 21, which experts have said was driven by COVID-19 deaths and drug overdose. The 2021 life expectancy report declined from 77 years to 76, marked the lowest in the U.S. life expectancy since 1996. So hopefully we've turned the corner and we're on the front edge of an expansion of life expectancy as well. And Madam Mayor, that is the end of my inspiration.
Thank you. That was inspirational. Taking a look at tonight's meeting agenda, does anybody have any changes? Or if not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. agenda approved. Also, would look for a motion to approve reading of resolution and ordinances by title only.
Move to read all ordinances and resolutions by title only and waive the reading in full.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now on to the meeting minutes from the last meeting, April 23rd. I know I submitted some non-substantive comments. Any other changes, Madam City Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We did receive requests for non-substantive changes from you, as well as Mayor Pro Tem Parkhurst. The minutes have been updated to reflect those preferences.
Thank you. Any other changes? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, approved minutes.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just for a point of order, should we have a report out from closed session?
Sorry, can we do that now before council reports?
Yes. Mayor, the City Council met in closed session to discuss anticipated litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9D2. No reportable action was taken.
Thank you. All right, now on to council reports. Who would like to begin?
I'll go first.
Councilmember Goss.
Just a couple things. Last week, I had the honor of attending the Older American of the Year Award, or Mary Carney was honored, and I think we're going to do that again tonight. And that was truly a pleasure for a wonderful, wonderful person. And also this Saturday, I got to spend some time at the Public Safety Open House. I thought that was a fantastic, just so great if you wanted to learn about our public safety. So many people were there. The fire and police put on really interesting and detailed demonstrations of their capabilities. So kudos to all of them for doing that, for demonstrating what we all know is our very fine level of public safety in this city. That's my report.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next?
I'll
Councilmember
go if that's
Garcia?
okay. On Wednesday, May 1st through Friday, May 3rd, I attended the Southern California Association of Governments, the SCAG Regional Conference. So SCAG is really an organization that's focused on transportation, housing, and economic benefit, expanding the economy. So there were a lot of talks on housing and transportation. I was joined by City Manager Reynoso and Management Analyst Carlson. I find a lot of benefit out of going to these conferences from the talks, but also liaising with our fellow elected and staff to build good relationships between our community and other communities, so when we're in need, we have good relationships. So I think we fostered some more relationships at that meeting. Kurt Hageman was voted in as the new president. He's on the Board of Supervisors from the county of San Bernardino. And since I was there, I missed the Senior Community Commission meeting. I am the liaison for that, but I did receive an email from Chair Kroc just getting an update on the meeting. There were a couple things. One was they were finalizing the Older American of the Year event that was held on May 8th. And also, I believe they finalized a date for the community yard sale, and that's going to be June 15th for the community yard sale. Also on May 7th, Mayor Pro Tem Parkhurst and myself met with staff and some employees from Wildan to go over our fee study report. So we'll hear a little bit more about that in upcoming meetings regarding the fee study. Also on, kind of jumping back and forth on dates, on May 5th, I joined 375 other players and families from Sierra Madre Little League. 375, yes, of us went over to the Dodger game, and we got to see Shohei Ohtani hit 2 home runs. So that was really exciting, and Sierra Madre Little League got to run the bases after the game, so that was really neat to see. The art fair, I attended that on May 4th. It was great to see the art fair with so many vendors this year, and I was really excited to see the presence of the Arts Center and some of their students selling some of the things that they're doing as students and learning the business side of art. So that was really, really good to see them as well. Let me see. Also was at the Public Safety Open House on Saturday. I was there at the beginning. I got to see the helicopter fly over. I don't know if you had witnessed that, but that was pretty cool. I was making jokes that they dropped me off, but maybe next year I can zip line from that. I'm not doing the dunk tank. It's not happening. And then finally, I just want to mention, on a sad note, a tragedy. There was an auto accident that occurred over the weekend. There were young adults and minors in that car. One of those young adults has a connection here to Sierra Madre. His name is Michael Pfeiffer. He was a Troop 110 Eagle Scout. He just got his Eagle Scout leave in 2021. His Eagle project was benefiting Bailey Canyon and refurbishing some of the benches and tables there. So he lost his life that night. And there are a few scouts and families, so I just that are in distress. So I just pray that we have them in our hearts and our prayers going forward. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia.
All right, let's see. It's been busy because we had an extra kind of week there. A few of us went to the Cancer Support Community Open House on 425. And you guys, this open house was amazing. If you don't know this resource that we have in our town and for our surrounding area, the Cancer Support Community helps support the whole family that's dealing with cancer, the caregiver, the kids of all ages, then the patients themselves, and it's free to everybody. They're right across the street from us, or down a slight amount, and it was really a great event, and I highly recommend you guys go take a tour, just stop in and say hello, and give them a call. It was a great experience. I also attended Pasadena Unified School Board's Department board meeting on 425, and we just tried to listen to some of the impacts that our city is going to be having in the next coming election, listening to their possible bond and parcel tax. So I suggest if any of you guys are interested, their next meeting is also May 23rd to listen in on that. April 27th is Earth Day, and we went to that at the park, and that was a lot of fun, a lot of activities for our families, learned a lot more about the bears coming back, and I know that's on the agenda, and some of the wildlife, but it was also really neat to see a lot of the kids learning how to plant things, and it was a fun day. On April 30th, we were here, all of us, for Mark Dussault's Legacy Raising Flag, and that was a great experience for Engineer Dussault. May 7th was a Planning Commission meeting. It wasn't that eventful, but if you would like to come this next Planning Commission, you could help see the input from the park at the Meadows, as well as some other exciting agenda items. May 8th was the Older Citizen of the Year event for Mary Carney, and that was very well attended. And the Public Safety Open House was fantastic. It was so much fun. Yes, I was in the dunk tank. It was just exhibitions from every department, everything, live fire. I mean, it was really great. And our assistant city manager, Miguel Hernandez, his dogs were like the #1 hit.
Thank you, Councilmember Lowe. Mayor Pro Tem.
So, very similar. I think Councilmember Lowe and I travel in packs sometimes because we're at a lot of the same events. So yes, the Cancer Support Center, I was there as well. Absolutely fabulous. We were able to give them a little proclamation for their 1-year anniversary. On the same day as the Cancer Support Open House, we had a community services meeting on the park. You can see the signs right out there in the lobby, so you can see the designs of the park, and we got some really valuable feedback on that. Earth Day, the 27th, I was there. It was a nice job put together by the city. Thank you again for that. That was really good. May 4th, a really busy day. Some of the folks had mentioned the art in the park. I'd gone to that, but we also had the carnival, which I stopped by, and Bark in the Park. All of them really great events, great day to be in and about the city. Might recommend we might try to space a couple of those out in the future, so that we could draw more people to those events. But it was still a wonderful day, and thanks to the city for putting that together. Councilmember Garcia mentioned the fees workshop, and I wanted to take a moment to thank staff for putting that information together. Took a lot of work to look at what our fees are, what they should be, how to update them, and that will be coming before us here in the near future. On May 8th, I hung out with the dispatchers and had smoothies with a dispatcher over at Friends Cafe, and that was a really nice event. I really appreciate our public safety team for getting out there and for encouraging them to meet more of the residents, and the residents to meet our fabulous dispatchers. So when you, if you ever have to make that 911 call, you've got a little bit more of a face to that voice. And then there was the Older American event later that day. And I know we're going to talk about her tonight, but my gosh, Ms. Carney, you are just incredible. The information, the stories about you, there is no question why you are the Older American of the Year. You've had an incredible life, incredible contribution to our greater community in this city, and so thank you for everything that you've done. And then, as you guys always hear, there were a couple of meetings of the Clean Power Alliance between the last City Council meeting, and nothing to report coming out of those. Thank you.
Thank you. I will not repeat because I went to lots of the same events. I think the only one not mentioned was the library's bookmark contest, which we will also have a replay of tonight. We have many of our, if not all of our bookmark contestant winners here tonight, and so I was pleased to help the library hand out those awards. It's always a great event to see how the kids in our community adapt the theme, and this year I think was, I shouldn't say, but something around reading in our community, how they adapt that into a bookmark-sized piece of art, and so that's always really fun. I think we had some repeat winners this year, so that the art fair, I think, is well stocked into the future. And I'll also just say, I will note that Councilmember Lowe mentioned the flag raising for Engineer Dusan, and that was an outcropping. If those of you who were here for the Give Life presentation around the month of April, where we recognize organ and tissue donation, Engineer Dusan spoke about having been the recipient of such a donation, and the One Legacy program, who was here receiving the certification, invited him to have a public flag raising, again, to raise awareness for organ and tissue donation. And that was a really moving ceremony. Not only did Engineer Dusan get to tell his story of life-saving donation recipient, but also other folks from the organization were there telling their stories of being involved in the giving of life through that type of donation, and it was really inspiring. So definitely, if that's something that is within your power, I would definitely consider signing up for that, because it is a really amazing, life-giving, and really sort of life-affirming decision. And other than that, I will have a few announcements. On May 16th, coming up this week, the Hart Park House will be hosting bingo and barbecue. It is $7 a person for a bingo game, lunch, and prizes. I assume this is a Senior Community Commission event? Yes. And so that will start at 12:15 on the 16th. Also on the 16th, later that night, you can just stick around after bingo and come to the Planning Commission meeting. There will be a presentation from TSK around the capital improvement project for our library. So please do attend and hear that update. On Saturday, not to be outdone, the Public Works Department is having their open house. Hopefully they won't set anything on fire. But there will be a bounce house and a scavenger hunt, and I think I saw on social media that you get to experience some of the big vehicles and equipment. So that should be fun for everyone. Looking ahead to the Memorial Day weekend, we have our ever exciting Mountain Wilson Trail Race, starting with the pasta feed on Friday night at Kirsten Court from 5:30 to 7. Dinner for $10 and help fundraise for the Trail Race Committee. That would be pasta, salad, beverage, and a dessert. Proceeds go to they go to Sierra Madre Search and Rescue. The next morning, bright and early, is the race itself. The race kicks off at 7, followed by my favorite part when I'm not running it, is the kids run at 7:30. There'll be food vendors and a beer garden hosted by R.T. Rogers, so come out, and then I think I will be presenting awards to the winners later that morning, so it's always a really fun event. Before that, I should note, on May 20th, a week of next Monday, there will be a Community Services Commission meeting where they will have an additional opportunity to give public feedback relating to the park that's planned for the Meadows project. And on top of that, if you can't come to these meetings, the city has put out a survey to collect input on the proposed 3-acre park. And so you can look at the Facebook or Instagram accounts for the city under Meadows Proposed Park, or use this QR code.
Wow.
So please do consider finding that link and providing your feedback on the survey so that we can use that as well. We're really trying to get as much input from the community as possible on the construction and design and construction of that park. And I will end with my bi-weekly announcement that we are looking to fill 3 commission vacancies, 2 for the Senior Community Commission, and you can see how busy they are because they have so many events that we all attended, and then 1 for the Planning Commission. So these are terms that begin on July 1st, so please apply soon. And that is my report and announcements. All right, so as a reminder for the Public Participation Code of Conduct, we welcome your participation and invite you up. Please do refrain from making personal, slanderous, profane, or disruptive remarks. If you continue to disrupt, I will ask you to stop, and if not, we may ask you to leave the meeting. Please do not bring any signs, posters, or large objects that would disrupt or impede the meeting. On that note, and please do state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes to give your comment. First, we will do for items not on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Clerk's Office received 2 emails for items not on the agenda. Both emails, one received from Anthony Sweeney and the other one from Steve Rosker, were forwarded to the City Council and uploaded to the city's website for public inspection. We do have 3 speaker cards this evening. The first of the 3 is from Patricia Kroc.
Good evening, Mayor Krebs, Mayor Pro Tem Parkhurst, and City Council members. I'm Pat Kroc, Chairman of the Senior Commission this year. And I just want to give a couple of announcements to remind the people in Sierra Madre of what's happening at the Commission. The Senior Lunch Program is back in business from Monday through Thursday, 11:30 at the Hart Park House. You can get a huge nutritious lunch, and there's a $3 suggested donation, and that is just suggested. On Thursday, you'll get a meal to take home for Friday because the program is not in effect on Friday. 2 commissioner vacancies are coming up. The commission, we have a lot of fun. We're kind of like the party people in town. We have 2 or 3 events every month, crafts, bingo, bus excursion coming up. So if you're interested, come by the first Thursday of the month, 3 o'clock here, and see what we're up to. We'd love to have you with us. And last but not, least, June 4th is the next senior bus excursion. We're going to spend a day in Solvang, up and down the freeway. So that is available. If you are interested in participating, call the Hart Park House. And on June 15th, which is a Saturday, is our fabulous, fun community yard sale. We've expanded it to almost the entire park this year. A lot of requests, probably 40 to 60 booths. The Kensington is doing a program on the band shell for a little while. There'll be food trucks and some music. So come and join us, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chair Kroc. And I will say, because this was a surprise to me as a relatively new 50-year-old, that senior programming in our town is for seniors over 50. So if you don't consider yourself a senior because you're in your 50s, you are. And you're also eligible for our events, and you're also eligible to apply to be a commissioner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our next speaker card is from D. Elkhorn.
City Council, Mayor, I'm D. Elkhorn on Grandview, and there's been some discussion, I understand, about moving the Sunday night concert to a Monday, and I think that It's a major event that a lot of people participate in, so I'm glad that it's turned out the way it is, because it is a major event for a lot of people in the city to participate in. A weekend night makes it so it's usable for a lot, and I think a bit of a problem to have it on Monday. So I appreciate that that you have taken it down to have it on, keep it on Monday, so you'll have better participation and more of the public can participate. So I want to appreciate for the efforts that the people involved to keep it on Sunday, because that's a major event, and it should keep on Monday so people can do it. Thank you very much.
And just to clarify, so the concerts at the park this summer will be on Sunday nights as they've been historically. So just to clarify that all the way around. No, but just, there's been a lot of chatter, as you know, so just to.
Madam Mayor, the next speaker card received is from David Gordon.
Good evening, David Gordon, in my guise as president of Sierra Madre Playhouse. I'm resident of Sierra Madre on Fairview. So we are, as you know, in transition to being a performing arts center. Los Angeles' newest and most dynamic performing arts center, although we continue to put on plays. And I want to give you a flavor of the program that our brilliant new director, Matt Cook, has put together. The next thing that's starting on Friday night is a play called the last 5 years, and it's going to be on for a month, 4 performances every weekend, and it's a story of a relationship told in song, and that will be followed by something completely different, and that is another in our series of Hindustani classical music. You may be surprised to find there is a large market for Hindustani classical music, and we draw people from all over the San Gabriel Valley. Whenever I do a curtain speech, I ask how many people are at the Sierra Madre Playhouse for the first time. And with our new programming, we're getting well over half, often, of the audience coming, and many of those are coming to Sierra Madre for the first time. I also ask how many people during their visit will go to a bar or restaurant, and usually about 2/3 of the audience put their hand up. I make this point because we are a part of the engine of economic development in Sierra Madre. We are having a series of classical music from 2 periods, one from the Baroque period, and another we're working with a very, very wonderful group called Wild Up, doing contemporary classical music. We are also bringing back silent film. We're having 3 silent film evenings during the course of this second half of the year. And we're also having a musical called Pasaje. It's a journey of a young Latino through life. And it's a musical, and we're told that Juan Miranda of Hamilton Music has approved the music, and that has a cast of 18 people. I don't know how we're going to get 18 people on the stage. Come and see. Most of our performances are selling out, particularly our jazz performances. We have a most established reputation now as being a really important venue for jazz, where you can sit and listen and not have to compete with people at a bar to hear the music. So that's just a flavor of what we're doing. Please go online, join our mailing list, and buy your ticket soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Madam Mayor, I believe that there is one additional member of the public that would like to provide comment.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leslie Krishnaya. We moved here a couple of years ago from Boulder, Colorado. We live at 579 Acacia. We love it here. Really happy to find a sort of a small town, place that has this great small town feel, which is really wonderful. My question is about the wildlife, and you might be covering this later. But I was hoping to be able to find out what resources are available to report wildlife incidents, or you know, if there's a forum to discuss that. I've seen some things on Facebook, but it's been quite shocking to me, some of the things that are happening as far as bears and coyotes. I have 2 dogs, and so I do have a vested interest, I think, and I'd love to just find out what kind of resources there are around that.
Yes, we will be talking about that tonight in our
Great.
wildlife update, and I think we can have someone reach out to you
Thank you
just
so
now.
much. Great,
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, at this time, we do not have additional speaker cards.
Great, thanks. So we have a number of presentations tonight, one of which I think has been previewed. We are going to repeat for this audience benefit the presentation and proclamation in recognition of Mary Carney as Older American of the Year. And I will just, yes, please. And I will add to my fellow council folks' mentions of that ceremony. It really was incredibly impressive. I'll just share one note because I don't think she's going to speak tonight, but one note that she mentioned in her acceptance comments is that Mary worked for NASA in Huntsville and was involved in, I think, at least 2 of the shuttle launches. So, I mean, that was news to me, and I just thought we have a literal rocket scientist in our midst, and she is the Older American of the Year for this year. Please welcome. I think she's here. Yes, she is here. Thank you. So I will read our certificate of recognition. Whereas the City of Sierra Madre celebrates how we honor our nation's senior citizens whose lifetimes of hard work, public service, devotion to family, and commitment to community have laid the foundation for the country we are today. And whereas Sierra Madre includes a growing number of older Americans who contribute their time, wisdom, and experience to our community, and people of all ages, abilities, cultures, and backgrounds for the opportunity to participate and live independently. And whereas Sierra Madre recognizes the importance of creating a community that offers the services and support older adults may need to make choices about how they age, the Sierra Madre City Council urges every resident to celebrate our older citizens, help create an inclusive society, and accept the challenge of flexible thinking around aging. And whereas Sierra Madre can work to build an even better community for our older residents by Aging Unbound, emphasizing the many positive aspects of aging, inspiring older adults to push past traditional boundaries, and embracing our community's diversity. Now, therefore, the City Council of Sierra Madre does hereby proclaim Mary Carney as the Sierra Madre Older American for 2024. Initially presented this 8th day of May, 2024 by Mayor Kelly Krebs, Mayor Pro Tem Robert Parkhurst, and Council Members Garcia, Goss, and Lowe. Thank you so much for your service. Oh, sure, okay. Mary should stay here, and then wherever you're the most comfortable.
We'll have Mary in the middle, and bounded on all sides. Great. All right. Mary, if you don't mind scooting a little more over to your right, I'm going to get you in between. You can actually shift. Yeah, if you don't mind shifting a little bit, because I don't want your head to be blocked otherwise. Yeah. That's perfect. Perfect. All right. That's right. Right. We'll look at me, everybody. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. 1, 2, 3. And 1 more.
You want Dr. David Phelps?
Yes, Dr. Phelps, I have to include you in here. All right. 1, 2, 3.
She's here.
That's right. Thank you. All right. All right. 1, 2, 3. Look at me first. All right. Now my turn. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you, guys.
we will hear a few words from our award recipient.
I just wanted to say a few words. First is, thank you so much for the city for actually having a senior commission. I think that's incredibly important. And I want to thank the city for actually having a line item in the budget so that they can support senior activities. I have to say, in my whole life, that was the loveliest party I have ever been to. And as I see pictures, it kind of comes more clearly to me, because at the moment it was just so overwhelming. And I just want to say truly thank you. And I hadn't realized that this is something that all the cities are able to do. And Laura just told me that there are 88 cities in the LA County area all have the opportunity to honor one person. So when you think, when you think about the fact that how many people live in LA County or in all the cities around the world and in the country, and they're able to pick one person a year, I mean, I'm just stunned, really stunned. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I would like to call up Associate Librarian Doreen Thomas to move to our next presentation, which is to honor our annual bookmark contest winners.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor Creeves. Hello, City Council members. My name is Doreen Thomas, and I am here to do a brief report on our, I am the Youth Services Librarian at the Sierra Madre Public Library. I'll repeat that. And I'm here to do a brief report on our 2024 bookmark contest that ran earlier this year from March to April. Laura Palmer, one of our library board trustees, and myself worked together on this year's contest, whose theme was Sierra Madre Stories. And this theme invited our participants to showcase the people, places, or things that depict stories related to reading or literacy in Sierra Madre. Our annual bookmark contest theme is open to children from kindergarten through 8th grade who either live in Sierra Madre, go to school in Sierra Madre, or have a Sierra Madre Public Library card. And this year we had 251 participants, which is a lot of participants. Our contest judges had the challenging task of reviewing each and every one of those 251 entries, and they had to select a first and second place winner from each grade level, kindergarten through 8th grade. This year we did have a combined 7th and 8th grade category, which means we had a total of 8 first place winners and 8 second place winners. All of the first and second place winners were recognized at an award ceremony that took place here in City Council chambers. Some of you were present. This happened on Wednesday, April 24th. And in addition, all of the winning bookmarks are on display at the library, in the children's room at the temporary library at 350 West Sierra Madre Boulevard. And I encourage you all to come and stop by and take a look at them. It's a really beautiful display that highlights the creativity and the talent of our youngest community members. So please stop by and check it out. It will be up all year long. Now, of the 8 first place winners, 4 were selected to be printed, and those are the ones that we're recognizing tonight. They were selected by our Sierra Madre Mayor, Kelly Creeves, our Friends of the Sierra Madre Library President, Julie Ben-Cosme, our City Manager, Jose Reynoso, and our our Sierra Madre Library Board Trustee Chair, Catherine Addy. And tonight, I'm excited to share with you the names of the 4 young artists who designed these beautiful bookmarks. But before I get to that, I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge the sponsoring organizations. We had 6 sponsoring organizations this year who provided both funding and manpower to the contest. And these organizations, in no particular order, are the Sierra Madre Community Foundation, Sierra Madre Women's Club, the Mountain Views News, the Sierra Madre Kiwanis Club, Sierra Madre Civic Club, and the Friends of the Sierra Madre Library. Can we give them all a round of applause for supporting our contest? Thank you. So the images of the 4 printed bookmarks are up on the slide. The bookmarks have been sent to the printers and they're working on them as we speak. I was hoping that they would be here already, but they're like on the presses right now. And they will be available for pickup at the library starting at the end of next week. We will continue to distribute these bookmarks all year long. So whenever you get a chance, pop into the library and we'll give you some. Now, without further ado, let's get to the names of the artists who designed these lovely bookmarks. So if you are present when I call your name, please come down to the front and so we can recognize you, and stay here till the end so that we can take a group photo, okay? And so the first bookmark is the one that is bordered in green. This bookmark was selected by the Friends of the Sierra Madre Library president, and it was designed by a student in the 4th grade at Sierra Madre Elementary, Zena McGonigal. When they're all up here together. Okay. All right, so the next bookmark is the one that is bordered in gray, and it is our mayor's selection. It was designed by a student who is in the 6th grade at Sierra Madre Middle School, PJ Altruz. All right. The next one is the one that is bordered in that light blue color, and it was selected by our Sierra Madre Library Board of Trustee chair, and it was designed by a student who is in the 3rd grade at Sierra Madre Elementary, Dylan Voralik. And I think actually Dylan is not here because Dylan had a game tonight. And then finally, the bookmark that is bordered in the pink. This one was selected by our city manager, and it was designed by a student who is in kindergarten at Alverno Heights Academy, Adeline Svanberg. All right. Yes, and then I think the mayor has an announcement for you. Oh,
yes. So I just wanted to give you all a certificate of recognition from the city. And so it's a certificate of recognition from the city of Sierra Madre in recognition of your selection, of your bookmark being selected for the 2024 annual bookmark contest. And it has your name, and the city council extends its sincerest congratulations. So that's all of the city council who sits up here congratulating you, and we look forward to seeing your printed bookmarks and using them all year. So let's give them another round of applause. If you all want to come up here, you can take a picture with the entire city council. You guys stand in front.
He should be short enough, so it's okay. And I'm gonna bother you guys. If you don't mind doing that for a second, I'll show you what I want you to do. Open it up, and go like this. Thank you. All right, perfect. So first, we're gonna start by looking at me. Sorry. And then we'll do fair. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna do one more. 1, 2, 3. And then free for all.
Okay, and now I'd like to invite our Public Works Director, Yanez, to come up. This week is National Public Works Week, and I will read the proclamation from here, and then I will come up. Actually, it's the week of the 19th to the 25th. Whereas public work professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to the sustainability and resilient communities and the public health, and enriched quality of life and well-being of the people of the city of Sierra Madre. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are directors, managers, engineers, and employees at all levels of government, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, community forests, and other assets essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Sierra Madre to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in our community. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Be it now resolved that City of Sierra Madre Mayor, me, Kelly Krebs, do hereby designate the week of May 19th through the 25th as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies, such as our open house on Saturday, designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and enrichment of life. Presented this 14th day of May, 2024, by the City Council of the City of Sierra Madre. Yay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If I may, just a quick little few words. In 1933, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt initiated the American Public Works Administration under the New Deal Act. To this day, the rest is history. Over the decades, it's developed into different divisions, different levels of government, what is now known as the American Public Works Administration. The men and women that make these departments across this great country of ours are outstanding. I am a third generation public works. My grandfather was public works, LADWP. Well, back then it was water and electric company. My father was LA City Public Works Water Division. Myself, now director of this great city of ours. Here we have a great group of people, outstanding men and women that create this department. The next time you drive around this great country of ours, when you cross the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, Public Works is there. When you ride a subway in New York City, Public Works is there. When you drive down Sierra Madre Boulevard, this great town, Public Works was there. If I may introduce the men and women that make this department. So if you would come up here, please, as I call your name. Mr. Donnie King, Mr. Damian Robles, Mr. Clarence Campos, Mr. Nick Munoz, Mr. Cy Womack, Nathan Smedley, Stephen McGee, James McGowan, Alex Villa, James Carlson, and yes, Jennifer Peterson.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Speeches.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Oh, Director Yanez, you might want to stay and demonstrate your value as the update for the library project. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you on Saturday.
Hi, Jen. staying.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Give us a second. Evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Last Thursday, we had our continued pre-construction meetings with Vertex. These meetings are happening concurrently every week. This is to kind of lay out the plan as we move forward to the pre-construction, making sure our ducks are lined up in a row and everything's is set to go this summer. Our next meeting will be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. That will consist of logistics regarding IT, information technology, phone communications, etc. Currently, we are looking at bids to go out for specialized subcontractors in about a month from now, so at the end of next month. And we're still somewhat on schedule. I say on schedule. Should weather delay the groundbreaking ceremonies, we're looking at about mid-July. This concludes my report. At this time, I will address any questions you may have.
Anybody have questions? Thank you very much for your, Mayor
Mine's
Pro Tem.
more of a comment than a question. If you could get us the date for that groundbreaking sooner rather than later. I know that we may be going dark or we've got vacations and all in July and August. I think most of us would like to be there. So as soon as, I know you're trying to nail it down with the state librarian, so please, as soon as you know, at least I'll speak for myself, I'd love to be there.
Definitely. You will all receive once we have a concrete date.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the business of the evening. Madam City Clerk, would you please read the consent items?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Before the City Council this evening are 5 consent items for consideration. The first is labeled A, and it's consideration of Resolution 24-26, approving certain demands. City staff recommends that the City Council approve Resolution 24-26. Consent item B is the annual report of the development agreement for the Meadows at Bailey Canyon project located at 700 North Sunnyside. It is recommended that the City Council receive and file the annual report submitted by the developer of this project. Consent item C is consideration of approval of the budgeted additional discretionary payment to CalPERS unfunded accrued liability. It is recommended that the City Council approve the additional discretionary payment. Consent item D is consideration of renewal of billing agreement for parking enforcement services with Intercon Security Systems, and it is recommended that the City Council authorize the City Manager to approve and sign the billing renewal agreement with Intercon Security Systems. And lastly, consent item E is the consideration of Resolution 24-27, planning for California minimum wage and amending part-time classification plan and salary matrix. It is recommended that the City Council adopt Resolution 24-27, modifying the part-time hourly wages in the city's classification plan and salary matrix. Madam Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. I will open this up for public comment.
Madam Mayor, we did not receive any emails, nor do we have any speaker cards for consent calendar.
Sorry, I skipped questions, but I was suspecting we had no public comment. Any questions or discussion on?
Just a quick question.
Sure, on a particular item?
Yeah, it would be item E.
Can we wait and see if there's anything
Sure,
before E? Anything on A? B? I did have one point on B. I did notice that the development agreement requires that the City Council make some finding with respect to the update that we got. And do we need to do that formally at the meeting? Or do we just do that by virtue of passing it on as a receive and file on consent?
Mayor, I believe it's just an acknowledgement that this has been filed with the city. I don't believe there's any formal action that needs to be taken beyond that.
Okay, thank you. What about C, the CalPERS?
I guess just a quick question, clarification. So my understanding is we're going to do 2 payments of the similar amount of $190,000. So 2 subsequent years to get us to the 85% funding. That's what CalPERS recommended.
Good evening. Thank you for your question. Yes, when we use the CalPERS tool, if we do the 2 payments for the 2 fiscal years, we would be at 85%.
And so I guess I was going to save this for a comment, but I can form it into a question. When we're thinking about these payments that we've been making, the payments that we are going to make, or if this gets approved, we were funded up closer to 90% or over. And so it's no fault of ours or our finance or accounting that we have to come up with these payments. Is it due to the performance of the PERS pension fund? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It is based on the investment returns and just assumptions and the new valuations each year.
And has the lowering of the discount rate affected that at all, if you're knowledgeable of that?
Yes, that one also has an effect.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, you're saying that tonight we're approving $190,000 payment out of the current fiscal year's budget, and you're suggesting that the next year's budget is going to have a similar line item for a payment out of next fiscal year?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, item D, the parking.
Item A?
Yes.
I recognize that with the, we've discussed this before, and we had challenges with getting enough people or the right type of people to do the parking enforcement. Is there any information of, is that likely to change? Is it going to be an ongoing problem? Is there any resolution, and what impact does that have to the city?
Good evening, City Council. So the impact it's going to have, so we have had some issues with Intercon just fulfilling the night shift. We currently just have day shift parking enforcement. Unfortunately, we're having our officers do night shift. What we plan to do beginning July 1st is roll all that over into our community service officers and have our community service officers, we're hiring 2 on a part-time basis. One would cover day parking, and the other one would cover night parking. We had already hired the 2. Unfortunately, we could only hire 1 at the moment, so we're currently advertising for the second position would go to the night shift.
So we'll have officers in the night shift do parking enforcement. Is
The
that
overnight
right?
parking enforcement, correct.
Got it. And so then the Intercon contract will be just for the daytime from 11 to 4?
No, we would eliminate completely. Actually, the contract, the way it is, it ends June 30th.
Got it. Okay.
So this goes up to June 30th. After that, we're tasked with the responsibility of parking enforcement.
Chief, thank you for taking that on and trying to address that employment shortfall. Since we're fully staffed, I'm glad that we can take it on. Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that then?
Yes.
Is it possible, and this might be a city manager or other question for one of you, is it possible to create that funding as a profit to pay for those part-time positions?
So there is some cost recovery in this with the existing contract. Some of it goes to Intercon, some of it goes to the city. When we take over the program, there is going to be some cost savings budget-wise. We feel that we can do it at a lower cost, hiring 2 CSOs. And at that time, the funding would go, some of it, I believe, to the city, and does some of it go to the courts, or is it all to the city?
City and courts, correct.
Does that have to cover just the fee, or can it be profitable? My question is, you know how many other things we charge a fee, and it has to be based on the cost recovery to the city. Is parking allowed to be a profitable revenue?
So we'll actually get into this later, but fines and forfeitures can be a source of revenue beyond cost recovery.
Thank you. So I was saying then that we're looking at budgeting, and we're looking at being fully staffed, and how did we staff 2 part-time employees? And I said, well, that would be great if we could use that revenue to cover those costs.
Thank you. Any other questions?
That was kind of a statement, sorry.
That's okay. All right, and then Councilmember Garcia, E.
This might be for the city attorney. So E has to do with some of our salary schedules bumping up against the California minimum wage. Do we have to have this come before the council every time we change this? I know a lot of times when we look at our salary schedules, it has to come before the council, but if this is a mandated state law, can we have language written in there that the minimum we can pay an employee is the California minimum wage, so we can avoid doing this in the future?
Yes, it can be drafted that way so that it doesn't come before council if there's going to be some kind of automatic trigger.
I mean, the thing that worries me is if we're just talking about this now and this wage was as of the beginning of the year, I would hope that we were paying our employees at least minimum wage, the three that were mentioned in the staff report, not have to pay them retroactively. So just to avoid any of these issues, maybe I'll make a motion at the end to, maybe it doesn't even need to be agendized, I don't know. I guess it does, but that's my question.
Well, I guess the question is, can we pull this resolution out of consent and ask for it to be modified to include this automatic update?
Yes, that's a better question. Thank you.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to remove item E from consent and move it to discussion.
I move to pull item E out of consent and move it to discussion, anywhere in discussion that the mayor sees fit.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, if there's no more discussion on the remaining consent, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent items A through D.
I move to approve consent A through D.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Our modified consent calendar is approved, and let's just go ahead and cover off E now that we're here. So I'm just gonna make a motion because I'm already here. I move to approve resolution 2427 with the modification that to the extent the salary matrix needs to be altered to reflect current California minimum wage, that can be done by staff without separate city council approval.
Second.
We'll need public comment on this item.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there any public comment?
We did not receive any emails, nor do we have a speaker card.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to the previously agendized discussion items. The first is discussion of the approval of the updated 2024 Sierra Madre Wildlife Management Plan.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Tonight's agenda includes a discussion on staff's ongoing efforts to update the city's wildlife management plan. While the staff report recommends approval of the update, we are still finalizing a small portion of the reporting and response chapter in collaboration with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. To prevent any delays, we are seeking feedback tonight from the City Council on the updated plan. The final version is anticipated to return to you and likely as a consent item, or you can decide to have another discussion. The Sierra Madre Wildlife Plan was initially approved by the City Council in early of 2022. Several recommendations from that plan have been successfully implemented, including hosting additional informational workshops, fostering partnerships with the Department of Fish and Wildlife's biologists and human-wildlife conflict specialists, adopting Local Ordinance 1453 to prohibit wildlife feeding, increasing publicity and public outreach efforts, and collaborating with Athens Services to provide bear-resistant organic recycling containers to all residential accounts within the city. Moving forward, the next step is to establish a resident volunteer organization called Wildlife Watch. It's developed by the Fish and Wildlife Department to aid in education as well as data collection. Staff has engaged with 2 dedicated wildlife organizations in our community who are eager to participate in the inaugural Wildlife Watch program. This update has been reformatted to align with the Wildlife Watch program's requirements, focusing specifically on 3 species: black bears, coyotes, and mountain lions. Additional resources included in the 2022 plan, such as information on other species and recommendations for vegetation management and such, will be omitted from this updated plan, but retained as resources that will be available on the city's website. Again, there is no need for a formal adoption this evening, and staff would appreciate any feedback that the City Council may have towards the 2024 update. And while I address your questions based on a previous comment, I'll go ahead and put our wildlife reporting portion of the plan. That is pretty much set. It's the response that we're still fine-tuning for the final plan.
So first I will open it for questions, then we'll have public comment, and then we'll bring it back for discussion. So, questions?
Where do we have this located?
This is a graphic that we have been, I believe it's on our website, but our new publicity IT guy, Thomas, who you saw here taking a lot of pictures, has used it on a lot of the village views as well as social media posts.
Okay. Is there a way we can for sure have this on the website? Because I looked trying to forward it to a response to a citizen and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, we'll make
Still
sure
the
it's
old
up
information.
tomorrow, or I'll find it and send you the correct link.
And it'd be great too if I have a question that I guess not a statement. The things that we state in social media, can we put that across also on the website?
That's a little bit of a question for the expertise of that department. I'm not sure everything would fit or be organized correctly, but I will pass along that request.
I'd like to see how the plan is for communication increase, just because it's been, we even had people today ask, how do I find out what to do? Thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember Goss.
So, great report, Management Analyst Carlson. I'd like to know more details about the Wildlife Watch group. You mentioned two organizations here. They're new to me. I don't, are the old organizations reorganized, or are they brand new? Tell us a little bit about them, but I'd really like to know what you envision, or what Fish and Game envisions would be their charge, and what would their capabilities be?
Sure, I'm glad that's a great question.
Can I just add to that? So just to expand on Councilmember Goss's questions, like how many of these Wildlife Watch groups, committees, expand like the organization of it. I'd be very interested in that.
Okay, for participants of our most recent Earth Day, the passionate volunteers in town, the Bear Lovers of Sierra Madre, and the Canyon Bear Society, and I understand the representatives are here tonight. They've been eager. They have volunteers who want to know how to help out. I mean, they're really passionate. Working with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, there are relatively specific and programmatic things that have to go into this updated plan. At first, I was a little put back that it had to be so firm and stiff, and all the work that we had done to kind of make it our own. They're guiding me to make sure that this becomes a Bible for the volunteers that is between 20 and 25 pages long and is not overwhelming. The Wildlife Watch, as soon as we get the go-ahead, Department of Fish and Wildlife will meet with myself and representatives of the two organizations and strategize training. Training, I understand, involves 3 total days, approximately 4 hours each day, 2 days in the classroom, and then on that last day, our volunteers will go out with Fish and Wildlife Department staff, door to door for education. If there's an opportunity for a response or data collection, they'll be able to do that on that final training day as well. We anticipate that there will be some city administration to do background checks on volunteers and the same kind of thing that we always do. We also think that they should be easily identifiable in the field. We want our residents to know if someone's coming up to their door, they're from the City of Sierra Madre's volunteer group, easily recognizable. They can always call police or something like that if they have any questions. So that's what our Wildlife Watch program is anticipated to do going forward. There are about, I think, 4 to 5 existing Wildlife Watch groups in California. Primarily, they have been focused on coyotes. This is the first one that will probably have a little bit more focus on the bears than the coyotes, And we are including the mountain lions into this program as well.
And do you expect it to be organized similar to Neighborhood Watch, where there will be sort of geographically specific, or would it just be these, you know, these groups, as you mentioned, that are interested in participating, or will there also be another component similar to, you know, would the Canyon have a group and different areas that might have slightly different bespoke needs?
I don't know that we've gotten to that level of organization. I'm kind of interested in that too. One of the initial thoughts was to actually merge it with Neighborhood Watch. But I learned that the Department of Fish and Wildlife's program is much more specific, and we're going to keep it separate. That's why the plan is taking a little bit of time to really fine tune and get what they want.
Any other questions?
Can I just follow
yes,
up my
please.
original? So the capability, I wonder, what exactly are they going to be charged with when they go out into the field?
Beyond going out into the field, I imagine that they're going to participate in events just like they participated in Earth Day. They were fantastic. They were one of the top drawers of the crowds. They had a pie eating contest, believe it or not.
Gummy bears.
They really engaged the visitors of the Earth Day event. I'd love to see them expand that, working together as a Wildlife Watch collectively and also as their independent organizations. They get along really well. It's a really good start to a program.
So you see this primarily as an educational kind of
And
activity.
they are going to be trained to go out to the field for responses. And it could, like I say, a lot of data collection, a lot of informational. They will have something like this in their hands at all times. They will have almost completely memorized the plan. It's going to be their Bible, like I say. So they're going to have all the information to knock on a person's door, to respond to an email or a phone call, and provide consistent information for what the city's going to do.
Where would they fit in with what we've called in the past wildlife-human conflict management? Are they going to be in that nexus, or are they going to be peripheral to that?
I still have a little bit to learn, but I do not see them as enforcement. They could collect information for enforcement, and along those lines, I'm thinking of prohibited feeding. You know, they can bring prohibited feeding code violations to the city. They can kind of be a buffer, you know, not a staff person, not a code enforcement officer enforcing, you know, are you feeding that bear? They're a little bit of a buffer that can help us out with that.
So they could keep track of encounters and complaints about given bears, so that when we reach a threshold, we could use that data to bring in the Fish and Wildlife personnel.
Yeah, and I know both of these organizations have specifically said they want to have a little bit more visual tracking. Both of them have mentioned a map, you know, with pinpoints, maybe different colors on what's going on like that. That will greatly assist the Fish and Wildlife Department as well.
Thank you.
So, we've got two fabulous groups in the canyon. How do we leverage the skills of both of them and not have overlapping or conflicting, or again, how can the two groups be complementary?
Are they specific to the canyon?
No, they aren't. One is not. One is the canyon and one is Sierra Madre. Bear lovers of Sierra Madre.
So they aren't the same geography.
I think one's Upper Canyon, one's Lower Canyon, to tell you the truth. So,
no, it's not. I don't
it's
know
not?
if I want them to speak.
That's during the
Good.
public comment. I'd be
I
interested.
mean, the idea is to cover the entire city.
Yeah,
It's not-
it will evolve, and it will cover the entire city, especially with the Wildlife Watch program. Whether these guys on their own in their individual organizations have their own focus preferences, as Wildlife Watch, as a city-sponsored organization, they will have parameters that follow along the line of the city's plan and the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
And Fish and Wildlife is doing this training, and this is a program that they've already set up. So we're kind of like adapting and learning from this. We're not setting it up on our own, correct?
That is absolutely correct. Yes, they've done this, and they are the pros, and they've been extremely helpful to staff.
So, and the trainers from Fish and Wildlife that are doing it, are they the human wildlife conflict specialists that have been so helpful with our city in the past, or are they different? There's our friend Mackenzie, in other words. Is
Sure,
she
sure.
coming
No,
over?
the people I'm working specifically on the Plan and Wildlife Watch are not Mackenzie and the other human wildlife conflict specialist. I can only imagine that they will pull staff resources from various areas. I'm hoping that they will be able to bring in Mackenzie and the other specialists and any of the biologists that might be helpful to be included with that training any updates, any announcements, any FYIs that go out through the department, well, I imagine will come from various people in the department.
And then the animals, other than the 4 or 5 that are in the plan, that information is also going to be on the website. So when we redo the website, we'll have the bear, coyote, mountain lion, and then we'll have another section that will have. Is that how you envision it? Okay.
Yeah, the Natural Resources Commission created the first one, and it was a really good endeavor. Each of the 5 commissioners went and got their own species, and then we had a other species section, you know, that went all the way down the rattlesnakes and birds of prey and things like that. We're not going to lose that. That was too much valuable work.
Yeah.
We will organize that onto our website, and I imagine keep updating that as much as needed too. But I did get specific direction. We needed to narrow our focus so it wouldn't overwhelm the volunteers with the main task.
And what was the selection of those core species? Like why those versus others?
I think it's relatively intuitive. Those are the ones that were receiving the plaints. Those are the ones that are causing a public safety hazard.
Got it. Yeah, so we're not seeing rattlesnakes down in people's neighborhoods. We're seeing the bears and coyotes and mountain lions.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just want to follow up on that.
Councilmember Garcia?
I think you asked half the question. So for the focus wildlife, you know, I'm no biologist, but when you hear of a mountain lion, that it's generally, from what I understand, one mountain lion for a large square mileage. I could be wrong. So, but we're seeing the behavior changing, and I think our purpose here and our want is to keep wildlife wild for their safety and for our safety, right? So the wildlife will stay alive and we'll stay alive, and that's our end goal. So I see a lot of bobcats, and I'm wondering why bobcat wasn't a focus wildlife. Maybe to an adult, it's maybe not as threatening, but I do often see bobcats. Was that discussed on the focus wildlife, or is that just going to stay within that other group?
We didn't get to that level of granularity. I imagine, you know, part of why we picked bears, mountain lions, and coyotes is because the response is very similar. I don't know that we would have a similar response that we can keep narrowed and focused for mountain lion or for bobcats, or maybe rattlesnakes. It might be a little bit more unique. And again, we do have to have a pretty specific, narrow plan.
Okay,
but
I'm
it's a great question, and I'll bring it up.
Keep bobcats wild too.
The entire, like you said, end game is my favorite word, is to have all of the wildlife back in their natural habitat. And if we see one on a rare occasion, it would be
pretty great
special.
to see them. Yeah.
And they take care of your rats.
And they take care of our.
I have one question that's different from this. I thought before we had discussed also looking at the penalties that we do have for those who continuously feed wildlife. Now, that wouldn't be part of this document. It would be part of our new municipal code, or would it be referenced in here?
There's a section on enforcement in there, and we did talk about that. And it is possible that from this plan, a recommendation can come to a code enforcement amendment. We have been talking about, we use the administrative citation structure, the bear level that we do for almost all of our municipal code, $100, $200, $500, warning usually at first. If there was a cause to increase that, that would really be a standalone code update.
Because we did talk about that in our previous meetings, that we wanted to, that was our advice.
Yeah, this certainly won't prohibit us from doing something like that, but the mechanics of getting that done would be a little different than going through this plan.
Any other questions? Okay, then I will open it up for public comment.
Madam Mayor, the first speaker card we have is from Derek Sample.
Hi, my name is Derek Sample. I live up at 623 Woodland in the Canyon. And just two quick clarifications, if I may. Michelle, who runs the Bear Lovers of Sierra Madre, we both started our own little organizations at pretty much the same time, because we were getting tired of hearing on social media about all the problems and miscommunications and rumors and rumor mills, et cetera, random rumors. And we didn't really know that we were doing this at the same time. And I didn't honestly know her, but I live in the Canyon, so we call ours Canyon Bear Society, because we're mostly concerned about the bears. Obviously, we're concerned about coyotes and rattlesnakes and bobcats, et cetera, which we have a lot of too. And Michelle had the same idea as well, and then all of a sudden we found out that we both had started something. We are in discussions as with a possible merger discussion, just trying to figure out what to do about it. Also to maybe not necessarily have the word bear so prominent because it seems to be confusing as well. And I don't know, I'm kind of unfortunately the unofficial mayor of the canyon, it seems like, so everybody comes to me to have these kinds of things talked about. And so I wrote a little something to read. It takes about 30 seconds, just to kind of give you an idea of what we were thinking, if I may.
Please.
Bless you.
Let's see. A few of us created this Canyon Bear Society last year. We felt that misinformation being spread around on social media and random rumors, as well as proposed violence, was getting way out of hand. There were talks of guns, shotguns, anything, samurais, etc., just to kind of get rid of wildlife. It was getting a little bit out of control. So we wanted to become a local resource of information when it comes to dealing with bears, mountain lions, coyotes. I am often called upon as the calming voice that chases away the bears. As an example, when we experience any issues and we feel that this is a well-written wildlife plan that will help expand our reach and further our own knowledge, let alone help calm any concerns that our neighbors may have when dealing with what we call our near-field experience events in our tightly knit community. Thanks to Chris, this plan is what we've been looking for: mandatory use of bear-resistant cans, civilian neighborhood watch training, non-lethal response, and no relocation, all the stuff that we want. Recently, many of our neighbors, especially newer ones, have been calling 911, radio and TV stations, and that's just due to a lack of familiar alternatives. This wildlife plan will help us train our organization and others in town so that we can help educate our neighbors, as well as an increasing number of visitors who come to enjoy a meal at Mary's Market and/or hike the Mount Wilson Trail. We aim to learn and implement proper etiquette and practices to ensure the general population's safety and peace of mind. Additionally, our 3 primary members of the Canyon Bear Society, myself as well, work from home, which allows us to help implement this program on a daily basis. And we have about 30 other people that volunteer with us around the neighborhood. And then, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Michelle. I'm the president and founder of Bear Lovers of Sierra Madre. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I took a slightly different approach where I wanted to formalize the process pretty early in the game. So we have been both sanctioned by the state of California and the IRS as a 501c3 since November 3rd of 2023. So I started very much as a grassroots effort. Prior to living here in Sierra Madre, I was block captain in Arcadia for 30 years. And I, opened a bank account and opened a website and formalized an email subscriber group. We have about 150 residents in that email subscriber group. I distribute educational materials developed only by bear biologists. I was in town today posting the May educational tool at the shops in town. I was up at Mary's also today. I also have the same education tool posted on 3 different Facebook sites, and I'm out every day talking to the neighbors. One of the latest things we did was distribute bottles of pine salt and ask the neighbors, like, if you just take a few seconds on trash day to spray the lids of your trash cans. And we were seeing bears weekly, only 4 weeks ago on Pleasant Hill and Old Ranch Road. And I've basically covered that whole area with 3 dozen spray bottles. And the bear did go down Sturtevant, but hasn't been on Old Ranch or, so, it's just one little effort. Of course, that's not going to solve the problem. But I do have 2 block captains, both from the Upper Canyon and the Lower Canyon, on my group. And so we do similar types of work. I just took a different approach to formalize it so we could kind of have some teeth in the group. And thank you to those of you who participated in the berry pie eating contest on Earth Day. Everybody had a lot of fun. Did you have any specific questions?
Anybody have questions?
For me, I know there was a question about the difference in the groups, and we were both grassroots efforts. I wanted to take on the whole town because I could see there was pockets of need in this whole town. When I retired from being a critical care nurse for 42 years, I started coming to city council meetings and library meetings, and I wanted to be more involved in the community. I just didn't know how. But I spent decades in education and research and implementation of best practice in major medical centers. And I thought, well, it seems intuitively, common sense for me to try to do the same thing in my community. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you to you both for your efforts.
Have you both you've met with our police chief and our city staff? And
Yes. And Police Barrientos invited me to a few of the Coffee with a Cop, and I come with a little demo kit of things that people can use, and I'm working with one of the Girl Scout troops in town. I have bear whistles and gummy bears and other things and educational tools to hand out at Earth Day. I'm working with a local artist for t-shirts and mugs and that kind of thing, but we've already launched coloring sheets that I give to the restaurants in town and Mary's Market to learn about bears, and activity sheets where they can guide the bear to natural food sources. So I would love to work, move into the schools, but we are small and we're a nonprofit, so we're trying to raise, some more funds so we can do things like that and bring whistles and educational tools into Sierra Madre schools.
Thank you very much.
Did you bring your stickers?
Yeah, well, we didn't. So the person with the stickers
bumper
was sick
stickers?
today. Yeah, so
I think I have some.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, how many do you need?
I think each of us should look at them. It's the same plan that Mammoth did.
Oh,
It
great.
says Sierra Madre, do not feed our bears.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I
Thank
was
you.
kind of running here. I should have brought some. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
I just, so you know, I've been here for 30 years in the canyon, and I just really love Sierra Madre, so we're going to do all we can to help out. So I'm usually tell I'm not much of a public speaker, but I'm passionate about this, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our
Okay.
next speaker is Pat Elkhorn.
Sorry, Mrs. Alcorn.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Well, I would like to, I don't know where I've been about being able to report sightings of the bears, but I want to talk about what happened on Friday, Monday, and today. On Friday, our painters had their lunch on a picnic table in the backyard, and they found it scattered around the yard and wondered exactly, maybe it was a raccoon. However, they picked up all the remnants and put it in the black barrel. And later that evening, we heard, of course, the unmistakable noise of the black barrel, and it was a very large adult bear. No amount of hazing would get that bear to get away from the black barrel, so we went in the house and let it have its way. The next day, I spied a bear coming up our driveway. This was a juvenile. Again, I tried to scare it away, and it wasn't really interested in anything that I had to say, and the air horn or whatever. Although I picked up a hose and sprayed it, and it finally said, "Yeah, okay, I'll leave." Monday, next door had their house broken into. Went into the kitchen and went through the cupboards and rummaged around. And again today, we think it's probably the same bear, came back, and when I tried to shoo it away, it didn't pay any attention. Unfortunately, we both have avocado trees in our yard. We keep the avocado, we try to get them all picked, and we try to gather them up as soon as they fall, but the bears know how to get up there, how to get up the tree, and they're up there frequently. So I'm just saying, my point is that the bears are getting bold, and they're not being afraid of coming into the yards again. We live on Grandview. We're pretty well far away from the canyon. So I just want to warn everyone to be careful when they go out. Nancy Schellenberger lives on Grandview, also our former city clerk. She said there's been a bear in her yard for the last 3 days, and she's scared to death, but she doesn't know what to do about it. So just a warning.
Thank you, Mrs. Alcorn. And she should call if you talk to her.
There are no other speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I will bring it back for discussion then. We're just offering guidance or feedback to the extent that that was not provided in our prior question session.
Well, I'll start. My 2 cents worth is I like the wildlife plan. I think it makes sense. I think it's good. And I hope, you know, over time that it makes a difference. Probably will make some kind of difference. But we keep getting reports from people like Ms. Alcorn, and they will get worse. The summer gets warmer, and the bears will get more aggressive. And this is where we were last year in September. We had to have a special meeting to bring the Fish and Wildlife Service in to talk about what we were and weren't doing. So I'm not really sure what to add. I think I support the plan. I don't really have any ideas for changing it or modifying. I think the groups that are wanting to get involved, that's very positive, good for them. But we have actually a public safety issue here that is a little bit bigger than what we're talking about. And I'm not real sure how to, we've already talked about it, and we've really come to, we're at wit's end in terms of what the next step would be. But narrowly on this particular issue, I think it's a good plan.
I guess, yeah, I would agree with Councilmember Goss. I support the plan. I like that the idea of having it streamlined and so that everyone can memorize it and use it. I do think, well, I'll hold it till future items, but I think, you know, the issues we're seeing with bears, we need to expand that conversation. So I think this plan is a great start. I think that education's really good. I think it's all very helpful. I'm fully in support of it. I think it's a logical next step. But to Councilmember Goss's point, I think we've got a bigger issue that's coming back, and I think that's concerning.
Well, I think I can maybe tie, I'm just going around, tie those 2 things. I mean, one thing I do want to make sure is that as part of this plan, as part of this implementation of these watch, that Fish and Wildlife will be taking this feedback and updating the response, because the fact of the matter is, if their recommended approach and response is hazing, and we're hearing, at least anecdotally at this moment, that hazing isn't working, then I'm hopeful that there's flexibility in the plan and in the training to then implement, you know, additional or substitute remedies so that we can actually have, you know, solutions that work. So hopefully that's part of the ongoing nature of this, and the data that they will collect will then inform the training for our volunteers. I absolutely think that a unified voice here would be so helpful. I mean, the amount of disinformation that we still continue to see, you know, expressed, you know, on social media, and you know, is very frustrating. And so, to the extent that we can broaden the group of people who understand what the prescribed response is, and the data collection that's necessary, and the escalation as needed, is really important, because I feel like people don't necessarily understand. They don't want to call the police. They don't want to call Fish and Wildlife because they're afraid of what might come from that. But the fact of the matter is, we have to have the data to be able to know, you know, how to respond and how to, you know, dehabituate these bears. And you know, that's an ever evolving, you know, response. So hopefully, also this could, part of their mission, the mission of this watch group, can be, you know, spreading the information not just door to door, but also, you know, be responsive on social media, so that the same voices aren't always being heard, you know, countering some of the misinformation and some of the misunderstanding about the, you know, the role that the public plays in reporting and properly responding.
I've attended a lot of the events with both groups, with the Bear Lovers of Sierra Madre and the Bear Society, Canyon Bear Society. And what I don't think people were realizing too is how much they do collaborate with what we've already known from Fish and Wildlife, what we've been told from our latest expert, our police chief, Barrientos, and his police officers, And when I went to their went to their shooting range event for their qualifiers, they really did go over certain things like how are they reacting to bears if it ever got to that situation. It became a safety issue and what their responses are. And I think the collaboration between all of the groups is what is exactly Fish and Wildlife was talking about in a unified response, meaning, like you said, like every single person in the city needs to know that. And that's part of the hard part is how do we communicate with our public nowadays? I mean, there's a reason that we have, new communication staff just for that job. How do we get the word out there? Everyone has different avenues. We've got a large age range that's over 55 in our community. So how do we reach everybody? Young and old. I had a 13-year-old email me about what to do with the bears, all the way up to our residents that have been here for years. And so I appreciate all the work that they're putting in. They're also, like I said, they're collaborating with our police chief often in our city management, and they're looking for the expertise and the data, which they're doing the research for, and is working with Fish and Wildlife to better serve our community. And we can't do that alone. So, and we obviously don't have that much staff. So I think it's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, Management Analyst Carlson, great job with the update, streamlining it. The previous thicker report is very good as well. I'm happy that we're keeping all wildlife within the wildlife management plan. As we sit here and talk, our goal, and we hear Mrs. Alcorn's comments, and I think at the end of the day, and we don't want to have habituated bears for generations and generations and generations, because it's not good for the safety of the residents, and frankly, it's not good for the safety of the bears or the health of the bears. That being said, and I've said this many times, we are not experts. None of us we are experts in a lot of things. This is a great council. We're very diverse, but none of us are well, you might be a biologist, Robert. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying. There are biologists that specialize in this, and we need to rely on the experts. We are not we know we're not experts here, nor have we ever taken a stance that we're experts and we say this is the approach. So we have continued to make pleas with Fish and Wildlife. My concern, and I've made this concern voice to Director Bonham when myself and the mayor went up and met with him, is that, and we have great communications with him, and he was very receptive, that a lot of the focus on how to deal with habituated bears has been Mammoth Lakes and South Lake Tahoe. I brought aerial maps with me showing how different we are than Mammoth Lakes and South Lake Tahoe. Wildlife corridors are not like they are there for them to get back into the wild. We are a lot more dense. There's a lot of issues. But I just urge the city and the residents to continue dialoguing with Fish and Wildlife to find the best path forward for the safety of our residents and for the safety of the bears, frankly. Because that's, I say it all the time, I know that's a grizzly bear up there, but we have a bear on our flag in the state of California. We're very proud of our bears and we love our bears. Therefore, we want them to continue to live. We continue the education. We'll continue to do our best. Again, bravo to Management Angeles Carlson and the staff and the National Natural Resources Commission. Let's be steadfast. We see it every single year. Things get quiet and then they pick up again. So I know it feels like we're talking to our kids when we're yelling at a bear that's not listening to our hazing, but let's continue hazing. Let's continue responsible hazing too, not hazing into backyards of people that have children. Things of that nature. So keep up the good works here in Madre, and hopefully we'll continue to get support from the state level.
I almost forgot the information about the mountain lions was so interesting on parts of it. Like I didn't know about their kills, and they keep it and they bury parts of it. So if you see anything like that, stay away, because we saw that on Sturtevant year before last, and we've seen the mountain lion. I mean, I've seen video of the mountain lion 3 times now in the last 2 weeks, and so I think that was so helpful. Thank you.
We want bears to live, just not in our houses. That should be our bumper sticker. Do you have the input that you need?
Mayor, if I may add, I think it's important for our community to recognize the efforts that this council has made, that our staff has made, that our PD has made. Our PD response and outreach is probably the best in the San Gabriel Valley. our partnership with Fish and Wildlife, probably best in the San Gabriel Valley. We're the only city in the San Gabriel Valley that I'm aware of that has bear-resistant trash cans. We have a wildlife management plan that was worked on by our Natural Resources Commission, and staff is working with Fish and Wildlife to update that specifically for the issues that we're having in town. We're in the process of establishing a wildlife watch program with our community, and we're working with the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments to establish a regional program, so it's not just Sierra Madre that's driving wildlife back, it's the foothill communities as a whole. So I think we're at the forefront, we're leaders in this realm. We're bringing awareness to our region, and yes, this is gonna take time, but we're taking the right steps to try to address this issue.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Anybody else have any final? All right, so we will move on to our second discussion item, which is the update on the Sierra Madre Community Youth Programming. And we have our new Community Services Supervisor, Ted Taggart, to give the report tonight. Is it Taggart?
Taggart, yes.
Taggart, excuse me.
Good evening, Mayor Krebs, Mayor Pro Tem Parkhurst, and council members. I was going to say my name, but we already know that. City Council directed staff to research the feasibility of establishing a youth basketball program aimed at providing free, open gym time in the evenings for the youth of Sierra Madre. Community Services staff and Pasadena Unified School District met on several occasions to discuss ways in which the city could use the middle school gymnasium to establish a basketball program. I want to have a slight side note. I have not been able to meet with PUSD yet. I actually have a meeting on Thursday, but the director did reaffirm their desire to work with us on this program. Taking gym availability and cost into account, the recommended hours for the new program are 4 days a week. 3 days would be during the week from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and then Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The specific days in the report, I believe I mentioned Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, are definitely negotiable and would maybe even welcome community input on those days. The three main budget factors for the city involve staffing, utilities, and janitorial services. For a year-round program, expected staffing costs would total $30,000 per year for 2 part-time staff members. Expected utility costs at the gymnasium would be $2,400 per year. Janitorial services would be handled by the staff. Alternatively, there is a fall-winter program being recommended for 6 months of the year during the day when the daylight hours are less. That would be cut in half for 6 months, so $15,000 a year for 2 part-time staff members, and utility costs for the gymnasium would be $1,200 per year with a 6 month. And as a note, this is currently an unfunded project, so if council directs staff to create the open gym program, there would be a financial impact of more than $30,000 on next year's fiscal year budget, which has not been included in that budget as of yet. I also, as a side note, some notes here, I did some research on the current existing local after-school programs in the area available to the students in Sierra Madre. Pasadena Learns is on site at Sierra Madre Middle School. They are a supervised fee-based program. It's $12.50 a day. They're open Monday through Friday from school dismissal until 6 p.m. And that is actually one of the factors in our gym time. They're using the gym until 6 p.m. for that program. Their program includes homework time, hands-on enrichment classes, and sports competition. They have teams they form and compete amongst the schools. Boys and Girls Club, which is not in Sierra Madre, is in East Pasadena, has a program there. They transport students from the school to their facility in Pasadena. It is, again, a supervised fee-based program that requires an annual membership of $100 a year. There's also a $40 a week program fee and also a $25 a month transportation fee. That program is open to all students. From 13 years or older, the program is free, however. And they're also open Monday through Friday until about 6 o'clock. Another program, which is an unsupervised program, is at the Pasadena and Sierra Madre YMCA. For a membership of $25 a month, students 12 through 18 can have full access to their facility and also facilities around the nation. It is unsupervised, so they can use the pool, use the weight room, the gym, things like that, but again, unsupervised. And also during the summer months, that is free to those students. Staff is seeking direction from council on how to proceed, and I want to make a note. I did walk into this project a little bit later than my predecessor was working on it, so I may have to defer to the city manager or the deputy city manager for some of your questions as I'm getting caught up. Thank you. I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Sure.
Councilmember Garcia.
So I have some experience with Learns. One of my sons played in the football program, and he actually didn't have to pay. They're just, the paid individuals have priority and preference.
Okay.
And to be on that team, then there's a few spots open. I'm just wondering, I'm looking at the financial impact right now, especially since we had our big financial review. So I'm trying to think of creative ways to, I think this is an important issue that Councilmember Gross brought up, but find creative ways to maybe implement this. I don't know if Learns, do they operate during the summer? Is that something that you know of, or?
I am not aware of their activity during the summer. I don't want to say they don't operate, but at this moment I don't believe they do.
Okay, so I'm thinking of Sierra Madre specific youth, and so we don't, as you know, we don't have a huge department. So, but I grew up in Arcadia, and they had Parks and Rec, and they ran summer programs in the gyms. But Arcadia and Arcadia Unified worked well together. Do you know if Pasadena Unified? Because I don't see, or not Pasadena, City of Pasadena has any Parks and Rec type programming like this that we can maybe contract through, and I didn't see that in the staff report, if that's something possible.
I'm not currently familiar with anything the city is doing, but the YMCA does do a summer program. And they are, I didn't mention that here, I did speak with the YMCA director, and they are interested in working together. They would just need to recoup their costs, so that is something that is deterring them currently. But if we were able to work out an agreement of some sort, that they would be interested in being involved.
Yeah, and I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think the goal is to keep the costs to the user low.
I think, if I correct me if I'm wrong, but the stipulation from the school district is that if they were to open the facility up for us without cost, that we could not then charge for use of that.
Correct. That's my understanding too. Okay. And I do want to note too that the Learns and all that is definitely a different time period than what we're suggesting here for the evening. So there is a little bit of difference there in activities and things like that, but just to set it.
Madam Mayor, the school district did indicate that the city could not charge unless it was strictly for cost recovery. So for example, if there were teams and jerseys were purchased, then we could charge for those jerseys or for referee or umpire costs.
Okay.
So if we went to leagues, we could get it covered that way.
It would cover just the specific costs for running the programs, not running each individual sports program, not the program as a whole.
Right. So like uniforms and referees.
Yes.
Like hard costs, not staff costs.
That is correct, hard costs.
Yes, Councilmember Gross.
You probably haven't done the research. I'm wondering what the value of that gym is sitting there every evening empty, in terms of the possibility for rentals to private or nonprofits, leagues. There's all kinds of folks who might want to have access to it. What I'm getting at is, I think if they're willing to give it to us basically for free, that's a tremendous. We have an opportunity to leverage a small amount of money and get a lot of value for it. So you're thinking $15,000 or $30,000. It's really, you're getting a lot more value for our taxpayers this way. So unless I'm wrong, I think that they have rented out to other parties in the past, have they not?
They actually, I don't have the number in front of me here, but they absolutely do rent it. They rent all of their facilities, and they were giving us a discount on utilities as well, right, from their standard fees. So I could get that information and report it back, but right now they do rent them.
Okay, thank you. Very good report, by the way. Thank you.
So,
hold on, I think the city manager may have had a response.
So, initially, when we first met with PUSD, there was a facilities charge. I don't remember what that facilities charge was, but thanks to the intervention of then Mayor Goss, they offered the gym to us at no cost with just the use of electricity, and made sure that the gym was ready for use the next morning per janitorial. So yes, the gym is now available at a very minimal cost.
I would also like to call out the acting superintendent as well as the new maintenance, the head of maintenance for PSD. I think they, in conjunction with Councilmember Goss's, then Mayor Goss's persistence there, they also, I think, made a key difference in that discussion.
Who's now the
yes,
official?
Sorry, now the official superintendent. Yes, thank you. Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Worries. So, I think you answered this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. So do we know what the demand is for this program? Do we have any idea? I know it's Councilmember Goss' idea, and I'm not trying to question it. I'm just trying to understand, if we have this program, will it attract people? Are we filling a need that's not there? We've got all these other programs. It's great research on it. I'd hate to. I mean, maybe we can pilot it and see if people come, but I'd hate to put any type of staff time or anything into it, and then we're not feeling something that actually people need. Do we have any idea on that?
So I didn't do any research particular to that yet, as I'm sort of getting my feet down the ground still. I do know that the programs that go from school dismissal till 6 are very well attended. There is a need there. And anecdotally, with children in the area, I've had a lot of people ask me if there are basketball programs in the area, and there are not many for this time of night. So again, I don't have data for that yet, but I do know there has been interest in my experience.
So I think I was wrong, but did he say, they go till 6 already?
The current after-school programs generally go to about 6:30. Some of the other ones that are doing with the younger children could go even later. I didn't include Kids Club. They don't do middle school and high school kids, but they do go later in the evening. But again, they're more your traditional homework-based, hands-on kind of program.
Can I intercede? There are leagues, basketball leagues in the summer in both Pasadena and Arcadia that our kids here in Sierra Madre go to. My son is one of them, because we don't have one here.
Yeah, and the PASNAS basketball league is
There's
very
PASNAS
well
too,
attended.
Pasadena
That's in the
So
winter time.
anecdotally, without any research, it's not just the kids that are at the middle school. It's the kids who all go to all these other schools outside of the city, but they live here and they're here in the evenings and they've got no place to go, basically. But I'll save that to comment.
Any other questions?
Shouldn't have interjected, sorry.
So I know you're new on all this, so maybe there's another staff person, but have we looked at costs? We've got this grant writer that's, we've got, that we're paying to help us out. Have we looked at, do we know if there's any kind of grants or anything to cover a pilot or to cover ongoing costs or anything like that?
That actually, it was my next step, depending on how these proceedings went, was to try to start investigating grants.
Great.
I don't have experience with sports grants personally, but I would need to look into it.
Any other questions? All right, well, I will open this up for public comment then.
And Madam Mayor, our first speaker card is from Lisa Cruzy.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Krebs and council members. I'm Lisa Cruzy. I live on Medford Road. So I live in PUSD District 6 boundaries, which Sierra Madre also is. So I am a Sierra Madre parent of a student that goes to Sierra Madre Middle School currently. And I wanted to speak in support of this, of creating a memo of understanding with the district. I want to point out that taxpayers fairly recently built the middle school through Measure TT funds. I think the cost was around $35 million. So, we are all invested in the school, and we're all stakeholders in the public schools. I toured Sierra Madre Elementary School today and saw the beautiful auditorium, and the principal said that part of why it's so beautiful, it really is outstanding, is that it was planned to be, used by the community as well, not just families. And I think that for our communities, strong schools strengthen our communities. Sierra Madre, I think, is not maybe aware of some of the statistics which are in your favor as far as PUSD goes. And I've been paying attention and doing some research on it. Sierra Madre Elementary School captures 87.5% of the students in its neighborhood boundaries. PUSD as a whole captures less than 50%. So you are vastly outperforming PUSD as a whole here. With their open enrollment, PUSD Elementary had 133 students apply and could only accept 79% of those. Sierra Madre Elementary School had 129 open enrollment 6th graders apply and could only fit 65% in. So that's basically about 73 students that perhaps could have been PUSD students if the schools had had room for them, if we were building here where students want to attend through open enrollment. That's not really what's happening right now, unfortunately. A lot of the current board is voting based on a heat map where students reside instead of where students choose to attend. And I think that everybody in Sierra Madre, in the community, and the city council should really advocate that we pay attention to the demand for our schools. So I think that, coming away from that, you really have a lot to be proud of in Sierra Madre with your schools. In the community survey, when PUSD interviewed to find out what the Measure O priorities were, Sierra Madre represented 11% of the response, which with 23 schools, that was a huge response rate. So you have an extremely engaged community. You're engaged in the district, and I think this will help bring the district to engage back in you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, the next speaker card is from David Gordon.
David Gordon, Fairview Avenue. I'd like to speak very strongly in favor of this idea. City government has sort of hard power and soft power, hard power being sewers, water, public safety. But the soft power is incredibly important. We've heard a lot about the senior program, how important that is. And the proposal to use this underutilized asset for youth in the city is an incredibly good example of soft power at a very, very low cost, because not paying anything for these extremely expensive facilities. You're facilitating something with a small expenditure of time. I have a query about why you need 2 part-time members rather than 1, but that's a matter of detail. So I think I think it's a terrific idea. It's not in the budget, but we have ample reserves. We have reserves on top of reserves which can be tapped for this very small sum of money, and then it should be part of the budget in future. All in favor of the cities using its soft power to improve the quality of life.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon.
Madam Mayor, there are no other speaker cards nor any emails received on this item.
Okay, so I will bring it back to council for discussion. Who would like to start?
I guess I could talk to a little bit of history. I mean, just with after-school programs being part of Sierra Madre since I was a child. And my partner actually worked for the Youth Activity Center and was a camp host and camp teacher, or whatever they called their titles. And it was really necessary for a lot of the kids in Sierra Madre that, didn't have parents that were home. Like my family was home every day, and they didn't have anyone around, and they did homework, and they did sports, and they had upstairs, downstairs, pool tables, video games, all kinds of activities. And it's true, we don't really have that connection as much anymore. And I'm curious to see what happens in the summer now. I do know that, I worked for Pasadena, City of Pasadena, lifeguarding at the Pasadena Unified Schools for about 7 years during the summers, and they were highly attended too. And I do see that need, that we have so many kids that need that extra guidance and fun also. But again, I agree that I don't know if we have the current need. I don't know how we would find that cost, and we're about to look at revenue later. And the hard part is the priorities. Like, it is a priority to take care of our youth, but where do we start looking at all these numbers when we don't have sources of revenue? So that's why I agree that the grant system might have to be the only way that we look at this.
Councilmember Gott, so are you amenable to, I know you really liked, and I like that format too, an open gym type of format, but we're hearing about possible revenue sources if this is maybe team-based. again, then that has a certain level of commitment, as we all know, with children that have done things that you have to commit to. So that's why personally I would prefer an open gym type of atmosphere, because you don't have to have the commitment, but and you might have a more relaxed atmosphere, which would draw more kids and probably be positive. So I just want to see where you are on this, considering either like open gym or team-based, or what your preference is.
Well, I think, in talking with the city manager about it, I think what we're talking about here is kind of like, for lack of a better term, a beginning point, a pilot project. Because I think ultimately we could do lots of things, volleyball and basketball leagues and all kinds of things with that gymnasium, and not just in the middle of winter, but all year round. It's quite if you haven't been in there, it's an amazing gym. It's one of the most beautiful gyms, I think, in the San Gabriel Valley, probably. But my thought was to give the kids a place where they can hang out together. You know, on winter nights here in Sierra Madre, and when it gets dark around 5 or 6, and kids are up for 8 or 9, they've got no place to go. We actually get upset with them when they hang out at Kirsten Court and get on our way down there. I really feel like if we had a supervisor down there just keeping an eye on things, they wanted to play pickup basketball, they wanted to hang out and play games on their phones, whatever, it seems to me like that would be, it would catch a lot of different needs. But just the athletic need, just the actual, the physical needs kids have. I brought up tonight this idea that, oh, well, the internet is seen as the big boogeyman, and particularly our phones, and maybe they are. Maybe kids are spending too much time on the phones. Well, where do we give them a place to go to get off their phones? This might be that place in Sierra Madre. Other cities do this. Pasadena does work with Pasadena Unified. Arcadia does work with Arcadia Unified on their gyms. They do share them. So this is really not a new thing. We're not breaking new ground here. We're just talking about something that, looking at a resource that's been sitting there in our backyard for all these years, not really thinking of it like that. So I think we need to think of it differently. And honestly, I've sat here over the years and we have spent $15, $30, $45, $50, $30,000 is too much money for the kids of this city. I have a hard time accepting that. I really do. 15,000, if you want to cut it in half, okay, to start things out. You find out in the next winter, nobody comes, okay, we'll hang it up. You know, we learned the lesson. But I wouldn't give this up because of this very small amount of money. It seems like I've been working on this literally since 2017. And we've come close several times. The biggest problem, of course, was the bureaucratic impediment at PUSD. For a while there, we couldn't even get them to answer our phone calls when Gabe England was our manager, city manager. So we've gone from night and day. The current superintendent is on board here. She wants to partner with us. And all I can tell you is this: if we're not going to do it now, I don't think we're going to get a better opportunity. But I'll leave you with that.
And just because we budget something doesn't mean we need to spend the money. You know, like you said, if it's a pilot program and if it's budgeted in something, let's say it's not working out, you know, I'm just throwing that out there.
We can end any program on our budget anytime we want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would actually offer a counter thought to, just for food of thought. I actually wonder if having a more organized program to begin with would actually then drive need. Because I think one of the biggest problems, and we've said it all night about a variety of things, is communication. And right now, no one in our town has any sense that middle school gym would be available to them at all. And so if we were just to open it up for public use, sure, some people would find out, we'd have some word of mouth, but we all know how difficult that is in this town, especially with parents of school-age children, because they are not coming to our council meetings, they're not watching our council meetings. So I actually wonder if putting together a league, which I agree, I think there is some demand for that, we hear that a lot, whether it's volleyball, whether it's basketball, whatever it is, I actually wonder if that would then create awareness in a way that then could drive need. Because honestly, I have a 16-year-old, and I'm trying to think back over the last 4 or 5 years, would he and his friends do this? I suspect not. No, I suspect not. I suspect they would not do open gym.
But they would go to the organized.
I think so, yes. They'd be interested in the league because, they go to the park, they go to Heasley Field, and they hang out. There are places to hang out in town. I mean, like you said, sometimes the community isn't super happy about them being in those places, but you know, I feel that they're safe and they're not, you know, they're not being disruptive. But so I don't think a hangout, sort of a drop-in, would be as just, again, anecdotally, would be as attractive to that. But if there were a league, then I think it would.
I mean, personally, I thought we would get there someday, but I didn't. This is such a new idea. It does involve money in a year that's we're fiscally tight. So I didn't really want to get that bold, but that is ultimately what I had hoped we would do. So I agree with you completely on that.
I think you could also, speaking to that, I was looking through, most of the after-school youth programs and sports are all over on the east side of Pasadena. There aren't any on this side. So all the kids in PUSD actually hosts soccer for Learns. I didn't see basketball now, but they have soccer programs. They've got a couple other like yoga, dance, all these other things in their gyms.
In the west or
on the east, like towards like Muir High School,
West side,
towards
yeah.
the west
That's
side. Sorry, the west side, not our east side. So maybe that could be a discussion too if we go to GUSD or PSD during the meeting and say, why are all your meetings over there, yet we're not being accommodated over here?
Well, from my experience, again, anecdotally, they'll practice at the school facility, and then the games or the matches are kind of on the west side of town. So the after school every day, the practice will actually be at Sierra Madre Middle School. But when they actually have game time on Friday evenings, it's over at a facility that can accommodate it.
That's through Learns, you mean?
Yeah, through Learns.
I looked at the schedule.
But Learns is not a PUSD program.
It's a program, they fund with the program of Learns.
Okay. But yeah, but I think it's an outside organization that actually like staffs it and organizes it, correct? I don't think it's PUSD employees.
Could be their contract. I'm not sure if it's contracted or.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So what I'm hearing from you, if we were to start this with a league, we could in fact charge for the cost of the league.
Right, not the staff
So
costs.
that wouldn't add to the 30,000.
That's what
But it would give us a lot more pull with the community, right?
That was my idea, but I mean, I only throw that out there because I consistently think about the communication gap that we have, and I feel like that would be something that people would take up, and that would spread in a way that then we could then see how that works, and then maybe move to a more open gym format if we thought that was something that people would participate in. I just have a fear that we open this up and then we get like 3 kids, and you know, and then we lose momentum, and then, you know, but you know, this is not my area of expertise by any means, and so, you know, I'm open to it. I just thought that would be a better way of inaugurating it. That said, it's a lot more work for our staff, so.
Yeah, and I guess that was exactly where my mind was going was, okay, so if we go down the road of the league, how is that created? You know, who creates it? I'm not sure we can, I don't know what the full cost recovery is of it. I'm confused at that part because I'm hearing we can cost recovery for uniforms, but not for electricity, definitely not for staff time. So how we would fund it, I think, is the hard thing in my mind of
I think we have to work that out with PUSD, right? I mean, like, we have to just figure out what their parameters are in terms of what we can charge for cost recovery for the use of their. I think.
So then let me
I think they didn't. Yeah,
let
please.
me reframe it. Is that then it's the creation of the program, and so is it that our staff does that and creates this program, and do we have the staff capacity to create a league with everything else we've got? Is there a trade-off that we're looking at? Is there something else that we won't be able to do with that? Because our staff is I mean, they're pretty busy as it is. Is this something that we can prioritize?
So, you are correct. Our staff has a full plate with all the activities that we have now. I think with the league, we're talking about, you know, this contemplates 2 part-time staff members. When you have a league, you have coaches at each age level, you have referees, you have uniforms. So my thought is we approach PUSD and say, this is a not-for-profit, but we need cost recovery to run the program. And we can develop a program to see how many staff members it would take, maybe a part-time staff member to administer and run the program, some part-time staff coaches, referees. This could all be community-based, you know, high school kids that are involved. I was part of that program when I was in high school. I coached at South El Monte gym, and I refereed. So I see the benefit of programs like this because it gets kids involved in their community, and it could lead to much greater things. So I think that there's a lot more work that we need to do, but I think that there might be a path forward. We can continue to work with PUSD, bring back a program to the council, and if we can work with them to make it where it's a self-funded, not-for-profit program, where it doesn't have an impact on the city, I think financially, I think it's something we could definitely try to pull.
Do you anticipate ever hearing backlash then for why we contracted out the pool and the YMCA in the first place then? Remember, like, before we used to do it all our own, and we used to employ pretty much only Sierra Madre kids? And we did put that contingency upon the lifeguards. It's like we wanted as many local kids as possible.
So I don't know what the fiscal impact and what the fiscal savings was. If I don't know if I can put
Big savings.
our deputy city manager on the spot if she remembers what that was.
Yes. Thank you. During the years prior to the city contracting, this is prior to 2012, the city did contract with our pool service, our aquatic services in 2012. And prior to that, the city for the 5 years leading up to that was in the red about $70,000 to $77,000 each fiscal year.
Just for the lifeguards.
For the aquatic program and including the recreation program.
And we were able to save we were able to save more than $70,000 a year by employing local teens.
No, it
By
cost, we're in the red.
By moving it to a third party.
It cost us.
It cost us, okay, yeah, by not having teens, it cost us $70,000.
In other words, we contracted everything outwards, yeah.
Well, we actually saved about $100,000 a year by contracting with Waterworks.
Yes.
And since then, we've switched to the YMCA. I don't know where we're at now in terms of
That just is what I'm worried about. It's like, what do we create this, and then we've already gotten rid of a program like this. We've already ended a program that did after school.
We don't have a program.
We did. We had after-school programming previously. That's
We don't have one at middle.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying is we had this prior. We had an after-school program with sports, with camps, with field trips, with pools and everything. And the worry I have, we start this all over again and we go through exactly what we went through in 20 years ago. And that's what I worry about, sustainability.
Well,
We're not talking about starting out with, I think we're talking about starting out with a contracted nonprofit group, right? We're not even starting out with I'm not sure I think that's what
I think to answer Councilmember Lowe's question is, in 2012 numbers, it was about $100,000 impact on the general fund.
Okay.
We would explore to see how we can run this program. Cost recovery, so there would be a fee to join a basketball league, to pay for the uniforms, to pay for referees, to pay for staff. So we would be looking at, it wouldn't be a free program, it would have to be a cost recovery program. And a lot of cities have that. I think when my kids participated in San Dimas and in South El Monte, we paid a small fee to be able to have those programs available.
So how's that, my question then is, how's that different than?
Did we charge to use the pool?
Oh, yeah.
Well, apparently we weren't charging
Swim
enough.
lessons, well, you just couldn't. You could not make up that cost and cost recovery. It was swim lessons, it was public swim, it was the YMCA after-school program.
Well, that sounds
the
much,
YAC.
that sounds
It wasn't
much,
YMCA,
that
it was
sounds
YAC.
much more broad than what we're talking about
I
here.
know, but my point is that's one program, and those cost money. And what we found out is that we couldn't recover the costs. They weren't free.
The after-school program at the teen center did charge a weekly fee, and the pool, there was also a payment for entrance into the pool.
I don't know. I think that you could have a good thing and then lose it, and then it still continues with somebody else, or have no good thing. I'd rather have the good thing.
Okay.
Right.
If we can fund it, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
no, if
don't
we
know
can
how
fund
we
it,
would
yeah.
do that.
Yeah. But my other concern, but we kind of thinking about funding, is that I want to make sure that this was equitable, that everybody could be able to participate. And I don't know I can't remember the exact term, but Sierra Madre Middle School is a school that is a certain amount, or at a certain poverty level or
Title
a percentage.
Title I.
They're now Title I, so that means that there's a lot of underprivileged children there. Maybe not necessarily Sierra Madre residents, but friends with the Sierra Madre kids, and they'd want to play with their friends. And I think we should have a equitable program, meaning maybe we wouldn't be able to recover as much cost as we wanted. I know Sierra Madre residents are very generous when it comes to this. When I think about Little League, anybody gets to play.
Yeah.
When you sign up, you can scholarship, however many spots you want, and a lot of our residents do that. So I don't know if that, I want to think on those lines too, for the fiscal responsibility piece, that we want to make sure that we're fiscally responsible yet equitable to all youth and accessible.
Yeah, if you had a Little League for basketball or something, that would be great.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about.
That's
I
what
mean,
we're talking about.
Okay.
So I think we're hearing some consensus that maybe we have staff do a little bit more work into developing sort of what this would look like, some more conversations with PUSD about the parameters around cost recovery rather, and seeing where we could go from there.
If that's the council.
I don't think we need to take any official action, right?
No,
Okay.
just discussion.
Yeah. So our last item is a report from our city attorney around, appropriately enough, revenue sources, specifically to fund public safety. But as we all know, dollars are fungible. So to the extent that we could have revenue sources funding public safety, that's money in the general fund that we could use to fund things like basketball programs.
Do you have the presentation up, Manager Carlson? Unfortunate. I give it to you now?
We can take a quick break. We can do a 5-minute break, and then you guys can, I need to use the restroom anyway.
Yeah, that's out of the same boat.
I was gonna open my email account, but that's true.
All right, are we AV enhanced? Okay.
Shall I proceed?
Please.
So Mayor, I was asked at the last meeting to provide a presentation on the potential sources of revenue to fund public safety in the city of Sierra Madre. So this presentation will go over some of those sources of revenue. The 5 most common sources of revenue are taxes, assessments, fees, fines and penalties, and subventions. A quick note on each of these. First, taxes can be general or specific, and we'll get into that distinction. Assessments, taxes are for revenue raising purposes beyond the cost. Assessments are a little different. For an assessment, you parse out a special benefit versus a general benefit, and you really try to assess parcels based on the special benefit. We'll talk about that. Fees, purely cost recovery. Anything above the cost recovery amount automatically converts to a tax. Fines and penalties, like they're punitive, as we mentioned before, and subventions are usually grants coming from the federal or state governments. So we'll talk about each of these and the differences. First, as mentioned, there are general taxes and there are special taxes under the state constitution. They are both for raising revenue. One is for any lawful purpose, that's a general tax, and the special tax is for a particular purpose that has to be identified when the tax is adopted. When the city council considers each tax, for a general tax, the city council has to adopt it with a 2/3 vote before it goes to the voters. All taxes have to be voted upon. And if it's a special tax, city council only needs to approve it by a majority vote. But when it goes to the voters, it's the opposite. If the city council approves it with a 2/3, if a city council approves a general tax with a 2/3 vote, you need a majority voter approval at the ballot. But if the city council approves a majority special tax, then you need a 2/3 vote at the ballot, unless it's a special tax that's been placed on the ballot via voter initiative as opposed to city council action. With respect to general taxes, just some other rules to keep in mind. A general tax election must be consolidated with a regularly scheduled general election of members of the city council unless an emergency is declared, so basically no special elections for general taxes. On the other hand, a special tax can be placed on the ballot for a special election. The taxing agency must publish an annual report that includes the tax rate, tax amount, status of any project funded by any special tax, all these requirements that you have to satisfy for a special tax.
Do we have any examples in our city of either of these?
Of a special tax or a general tax? I don't believe we. Well, the UUT is a tax and is a special tax. Yeah, right. The UUT. As far as a general tax, well, I suppose it's a UUT would be a general tax because it can be used for any purpose.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Next slide. Some relevant timelines to consider if the city council is thinking about a tax. The first is that your June 11th meeting is going to be taken up with the annual budget. On July 23rd, that's the last possible meeting that city council can act before the deadline to place an initiative on the ballot for tax purposes, and that deadline is August 9th to place any kind of tax initiative on the ballot. So that doesn't leave many meetings available to consider something like this.
Can I go back? And I'm sure you're right, but back in 2015, I was on a committee and we really drilled down, and one of the named partners at your firm helped us out. And from what I recall, maybe my recollection's faulty, is that a general tax brought by a council was a majority, and the special tax was 2/3. And the reason being that a general tax can be used for anything, and the voter doesn't have as much say on what it's spent on, whereas a special tax, such as for public safety, the voter has a little bit more say in what it's spent on, therefore it was a lower threshold for the voter. That was back in 2015. It was my understanding. I could be wrong. Has that changed, or?
No, that hasn't changed. A special tax has always been subject to 2/3 vote since Prop 218 was adopted in 1996, I think. And the rationale, as I understand it, is while a general tax seems easier to pass, politically it's harder to pass because it's less palatable to the voters because they don't know what the city council is going to spend it on. Whereas a special tax, you know what it's going to be spent on. It's going to be spent on a specific purpose, but it's more difficult to pass as a result.
So my reasoning was right, I guess, in my mind, but I had the two crossed.
And that's
it's harder to pass because could be for anything.
Could be for anything.
And for either the general or special tax, if you've got an initiative, is there a requirement for when the council has to put it on the ballot? So if you receive an initiative, could you put it in? So say we receive an initiative now, could you put that on the 2026 ballot, or do you have to do it at the closest election to when a initiative qualifies for the ballot?
I believe that well, let me stop. It depends if it's a general election or a special election, right? Because a general election needs to be consolidated with a general tax needs to be consolidated with a general election.
Right.
But if your question is specifically about a special tax, then the city council, I believe, is the one that gets to determine when the special tax is placed on the ballot. And so if that's going to be in 2024 or 2026 is the city council's call.
Could you delay it indefinitely?
No, not possible.
So then what's the time limit?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So, you could put it out to 2030, you're saying,
right.
Potentially. Yeah, I'm sure I'm not aware of the limitation, but I'm confident there's a limitation in the statute that prevents that kind of gamesmanship.
But you're not required to do it right away at the next upcoming election.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So there are different types of general and special taxes. Now, the ones I'm going to list, most of them can be either in a general tax form or a special tax form. And I discussed in that last column there whether that potential source of revenue is available to fund public safety. Property taxes are ad valorem taxes. Prop 13 regulates those, and it's not a source of revenue available for public safety because you can't vote to increase your property taxes. Well, you can vote to increase them beyond the 1% assessed value, but it's not going to go. It can go toward infrastructural improvements. It can't go to staff costs. A parcel tax is not an ad valorem tax in that it's not about the assessed value of the property, but it is levied on the property. The basis of that tax is going to be something else, like some characteristic of the property, such as square footage, lot size, dwelling units, or you could just have a flat tax per parcel. That can be a source of revenue for public safety. A business license tax. We currently have a business license tax. You can have a business license fee to cover the cost of staff, but you could also have a cost of revenue. You could have a revenue, a tax for revenue purposes, above and beyond what it costs staff to process these business license applications. Utility users tax, which you have in the city, and it's used for any general purpose, so it's a general tax. Transactions and use tax, it's also a type of excise tax. Excise taxes are taxes for the privilege of doing something in the city. Transactions and use tax is similar to a sales tax. I don't believe that's an option available to the city currently. Transient occupancy tax, also not an option available to the city because there aren't sufficient hotels and short-term rentals, I think, in the city to justify it. Documentary transfer tax.
What's the floor for that? What's the threshold?
There's no threshold. You can apply it to a single short-term rental, but the revenue that would generate from it wouldn't be sufficient to cover your public safety expenses in any meaningful way.
Okay, so if we wanted to, for all the Airbnbs in town, we could levy a tax on them. But it's, and it could be used for public safety, but you have to have a certain amount of funds to be able to do that?
It would be like
Yeah, it would be, the amount would be
so
not
small.
meaningful.
It actually says no in your chart that we couldn't use it for public safety.
I said no, not because legally you can't use it for public safety, but because we don't have a sufficient tax base.
Oh, I see.
Documentary transfer tax, it's for the privilege of selling real estate. We're already at the maximum allowed under state law for collecting that, which I think is 0.5%. I think it's a small sum, and it's collected by the county. Admissions tax, so purchasing admissions to entertainment. So like, you could impose a tax on the Sierra Madre Playhouse, for example, and use that as a source of revenue. But again, I said likely no, because that contemplates, like the Staples Center, convention centers, things like that. So big cities like the city of LA has an admissions tax. A parking tax is an option available if the city council chooses to go that route. And a development tax. We currently have mitigation impact fees. Those mitigation impact fees, because they're fees, recover costs. But you could have a revenue raising tax on top of what the development impact fee is if the city council chose to do it.
And all of these would go to a vote of the people.
Every tax must be voted upon. Yeah. Assessments. So there are two types of assessments: property assessments and business assessments. There are lots of different laws that authorize assessments, and you'd have to find which one is appropriate for public safety purposes. A property-based assessment imposes the assessment on real property and is collected via the tax roll by the county, and it requires a majority protest before it can be levied, and it can be used as a source of revenue for public safety purposes. You can also have a business assessment imposed on businesses and collected via the business operation tax. So like, for example, you could have it on businesses and collect it through the business license collection process. Also has to go through a majority protest, also can fund public safety. Fee, yes?
Before you go on, I'm confused at what the difference between a tax and an assessment.
So if you're going to have an assessment, then you're going to have to adopt something called an engineer's report. And the engineer's report is going to have to break up something called a specific benefit and a general benefit. And so let's take, so I serve as general counsel to a business improvement district in Burbank. That Burbank Business Improvement District is intended to cover all the hotels. So every hotel, so it's a business assessment. All the hotels in Burbank are issued this assessment. The engineer's report for that business improvement district has to identify, when it collects those funds, how much of those funds are going to be used for the specific benefit of the hotels for purposes of tourism, and how much of that money is going to be potentially used for a general benefit for the entire city of Burbank. If it's for a general benefit, those funds can't be collected from that source. It can only be, the funds that are collected have to be used for the specific benefit of whoever's being assessed.
So I'm looking at my property tax bill right now, and there's direct assessment, safe clean water, flood control, response measure A, SGV, mosquito, vector, county sanitation district, and trauma emergency services. Those would all fall under the property assessment.
Right.
The top
property assessment.
Okay.
Correct. And assessments, the benefit of assessments is they're just easier to collect because they don't require voter approval in the same way on a ballot as taxes do. An assessment is going to be a mailed ballot, so it's going to go out to all the properties, and then they're going to have the opportunity to protest it, and then there's going to be a public hearing where they can have a protest, and whoever, if there's a majority protest, the assessment will fail.
So question, I've just read off a laundry list of assessments. maybe this is for the city clerk. Are any of those assessments Sierra Madre specific, or are they larger organizations?
The ones that I heard you list are large so like
I know
Mosquito,
sanitation,
Vector,
yeah.
and Vector, those are not located within Sierra Madre. They're much larger and cover a broader regional area.
Well, we have landscape assessments here,
Yes.
correct? Right, landscape and lighting assessments.
Couple districts, right?
Yeah.
That we just got rid of.
So are you talking about a general assessment?
Yeah, we
Or
have
like-
those, but they're not.
Well, I know that, but I mean, for a more generalized assessment than for lighting or landscaping, but something like public safety assessment?
Well, I'm just asking, maybe that's a discussion, but I'm looking at the bill and saying, are these
Okay.
what he's talking about right
I'm sorry.
So if we wanted to do a general assessment to the properties for public safety, we could have an engineer's report do that, and it would end up on the tax bill, and you'd mail out ballots like we did with the trash fees. Thank you. And if you had a major protest, then it would be there. But the cost would be the engineer's assessment. Everything else you could go through and you get it.
Yeah, yes, here's the challenge. A tax, you can craft it as you please to do what you want it to do. An assessment is much more limiting. First, you have to find a statute in the code that authorizes you to collect it for that purpose. And then that purpose might not be the exact purpose that you want to use that fund for. For example, there's lots of these assessment laws that allow you to use it for infrastructural purposes, but not for your day-to-day staff costs, for example.
Got it.
So it depends what that public safety cost is that you're trying to use it for.
And then you said that there's a difference between the general benefit and the specific benefit. And how specific does it have to be? I mean, because you could make an argument that in the example, the Burbank district that you gave, that using the money to benefit Burbank generally benefits the hotels too, because it makes Burbank more attractive for people to come and stay in their hotels. So, but that sounds like it's probably not specific enough to satisfy that requirement.
And this is why they have to hire a consultant to do an engineer's report, which is a whole separate process, yeah.
Is there a cost, is there a limit on the amount you can do that? Like a maximum?
On the assessment? It has to be, I don't know actually off the top of my head. I'm not sure. I know on taxes there isn't. But there is some kind of reasonableness requirement under the Constitution that ties it to the purpose it's going to be used for. But I don't know that there's some kind of hard cap.
Right, because wasn't that part of the issue when we dissolved the
lighting,
the district we had here? Is that we were it was divorced from the amount that we were actually spending because the nature of the lighting had changed over time.
Yeah, well and the issue with that one was the reason it was divorced is because that was it was an ad valorem assessment, which doesn't even exist anymore because that one preceded Prop 13.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Okay. Fees. So the city council is going to talk about this at their next meeting when they see the nexus study for the fees. But there are really, let's break it down into two separate types of fees. The ones at the top are your public facilities fees, also known as mitigation impact fees. You won't be discussing those at the next meeting. Those aren't up for discussion. What is up for discussion are your regular user fees. And you see at the bottom in your fee schedule, it's the police fees and the fire fees. Fees, like I said, they are all about cost recovery. If you find that you're exceeding the cost of providing the service, it automatically becomes a tax, and that portion of the fee that is greater than the cost has to be voted upon before it can be collected or refunded. The trouble with the fee studies is that often the fee studies undercalculate the true cost to the agency in providing the service. So that's why fee studies often, you have to do these on some regular basis, rather frequently, to reflect the true cost of the agency. Fines and penalties. I think it was Management Analyst Carlson talked about the administrative fee schedule. That's statutory, 100, 200, 500, and then 500 for every violation thereafter. There are special statutes that impose higher administrative fines and penalties for specific types of violations, but we don't have to get into that. Civil fines. Here's something that the city has the authority to impose, but we've never done, at least while I've been city attorney. Under the government code, the city can impose up to $1,000 in civil fines for each violation of a municipal code provision. The difficulty here is collection, because in the administrative process, we issue the citation and they pay directly to code enforcement. For a civil fine, that has to go through the judicial system. So we can accumulate those, and then we take it to court, and then we'd have the court issue a judgment. Criminal fines are also available to the city. We have here misdemeanors. We can, a violation of a city municipal code can be a misdemeanor. City municipal code provisions can never be felonies, so felonies aren't really an option available to us. Criminal fines for felonies. And Councilmember Lowe pointed out that, what if you increased traffic citation amounts to increase revenue? I'll note that some of these fines have predetermined calculations that result in a distribution that we don't necessarily control. And a lot of that's governed by the Judicial Council bail and penalty schedule. And I believe traffic fines are on that schedule. And last, I'll call them the miscellaneous ones. So you have rents, royalties, concessions. So think of your cell tower leases, investment earnings like your investments in LAIF, gifts like the gifts we received in the past for public safety, state subventions like Prop 1A, and federal subventions like the CARES Act funds that we received. So those are all the potential revenue sources available for public safety. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have questions for the city attorney before we open to public comment and then discussion?
One source of revenue I didn't see that I was questioning was, say, like our subscription costs, like the ambulance subscription and our billing. Those are cost recovery, correct?
Yeah, I don't exactly know where that falls in. That almost seems like it's an enterprise. So it's not necessarily, it doesn't seem to me that this is a cost recovery because someone can opt into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a service that we provide regardless, correct?
Yep.
So it seems almost like an enterprise, like as if the city were to fabricate something and sell it and make money off of it.
Because I believe we're only using about 5% of our population, our citizens, use the subscription program.
Well, I also suspect that there's a tipping point, right? There's a point at which the fee, if everyone opted in, I suspect the fee is probably too low to cover the cost because, there's, you know what I mean? Like when you set the price, you're projecting a certain amount of usage, and I suspect if it was 100% usage, it would not be profitable because then it would cost. Because what the subscription, it doesn't cover the cost.
But it's not a fee recovery.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. But you wouldn't want to do it if it wasn't going to be profitable.
It's like
not a service. It's supposed to be revenue generating.
Correct. So I'm saying, we could tap into that as I'm looking at revenue sources, and why wouldn't we?
I'm sure we do, right? Because we're using it now.
Well, we don't have manpower to staff but someone really promoting, going out there. And
yeah, I'd say it's more akin to rents, royalties, and concessions than anything else.
I think so too. Okay, thanks.
The paramedic subscription program, I believe, goes to the general fund as well, right?
Yes, right. Any other questions?
Question?
Our ambulance billing also would go into that extra?
No, the ambulance billing, I believe, is a fee.
Okay.
So when a council brings one of these to the public, oftentimes it's my understanding there's an education process. It's not advocacy, yes or no type, but it's more of an education. Do you have any experience or knowledge on how long the education process is for, let's say, a parcel tax?
I do not.
Any other questions?
And if we
if we were to try to bring a parcel tax, if we look at the timeline, it's just a single meeting, right? So if we gave you direction to say, we would like to put a matter on the ballot for 2024, if someone were to tonight say that, you could bring it back within 2 weeks, and we could vote to be able to put it on the ballot. There's no other steps that are required. I'm trying to work in backwards from the August 9th timeframe.
So one common thing, so no, the answer is, you're right. It's one meeting. But I'll say one common thing that most councils do before they consider a tax is they have staff do an impacts analysis to determine what the impact of that tax would be, both financially and what the funds would be used for, and et cetera. So that's something that's commonly done, especially with taxes via initiative, but it's not a requirement.
And so maybe this is the city manager, how long does it take to do that type of an impact analysis?
30 days usually.
30 days. So that would put us at really the June 26th meeting, or the June 25th meeting.
If direction were to be provided today, yeah.
But that's in general, because maybe we might have some of that data, because we just went over that, maybe looking into our future. In our last agenda item, last meeting, we did look into projected costs, so maybe some of that research would already be done.
So city manager, if we were to do that, if we wanted to do that impact assessment, when could you get it back to us?
It is budget season.
I think we would probably opt for a special meeting in August to give our finance team time to complete the budget and then work on the impact analysis.
So we'd do a special meeting in August so that we would have the impact analysis and the measure all done in time for the August 9th deadline. And would we have to give that direction tonight?
No.
And I mean, I don't believe direction would be in order currently for this agenda item, because this agenda item is only for discussion.
It would have to be future.
Right.
Yes, I recognize that. Yes. I'm just trying to think through timing. If we wanted to try to get something on the ballot this year on it, do we want to try to do it? Do we have to make the decision tonight, or does it have to be? Well, let me ask you a different way. Does it have to be at a council meeting, or could direction be given between council meetings?
I think that's probably something the city manager can do on his own initiative. Doesn't necessarily need to come from council to provide that kind of analysis, but it would need to be agendized for discussion.
Absolutely. No, I'm not thinking that it wouldn't have to be. Okay.
This may be a different line of questioning, but I think it's, excuse me, within the scope of the discussion. Let's say that there is a parcel tax and it's specific to public safety, for instance, because that's what we're talking about. The finance department, or let's say the city manager, and then ultimately the council has a purview on how much of that tax would be allocated in any given year to that resource. Is that correct?
Right.
So on any given year, let's say they raise $2 million, but we allocate $1 million, that would leave an extra $1 million. That would go into a special, that would go into a special reserve fund for public safety only?
Right. It would have to be limited for the purpose for which the funds were raised. So I suppose it could go into a reserve fund for that specific purpose, yeah.
So we have a policy here that we don't use reserves for ongoing expenses, except maybe a one-time, right? So if there was reserves that would let's say they built for a little bit, those would only be available for things such as one-time costs or infrastructure. Is that your understanding, or is that just the policy of the council and what we have currently going? If that makes sense?
You mean as opposed to like a legal requirement?
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you so to give an example, if it's for public safety generally, and the funds are collected and a certain percentage is placed in some kind of special fund, separate fund, because it's not being used, your question is, do we have to limit that other fund to infrastructure, not using it for staff day-to-day costs?
Correct.
Per your own policy, I suppose, yes.
Okay.
But state law doesn't impose that kind of limitation on the city council.
Okay, so like, let's say there was a rainy day. Not that, because of our revenue sources, we don't typically have those rainy days. But let's say there was a rainy day and we relied on sales tax tremendously and there was a recession. We could then dip into that reserve and use that for operations.
Right, and you could
Safety operations.
Yes.
Yeah, and you could also always vote to remove that limitation that you've placed upon yourself to use it for any purpose.
Okay, just want to make sure I had an understanding of that.
The policy is just for our own fiscal hygiene, right? I know there's recommendations and best practices that go into some of the things that the accounting awards and the finance awards that we win, but that's just sort of a best practice. It's, I mean, to the city attorney's point, it's not a legal requirement.
I believe you're correct, and if our finance director was here, she would probably argue that we do not want to use reserves for ongoing expenditures.
Right, but the reserve that's described here is a different kind of reserve.
This policy was adopted via resolution, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So if it was adopted via resolution, it can be undone. If it was an ordinance, it'd be different.
And I don't want to get into discussion here, but my thinking is, okay, it's two-pronged, because there are signature gatherers for a parcel tax right now.
Right.
And let's say that passes and it's more than what we need currently for operations, but maybe we need more for operations in the future. That's one thing. But the other thing is kind of thinking about our sources of funds currently, and let's say that this council, let's ignore the signature gathering. Let's say this council decides to put something on the ballot in 2026. Would we have, as Mr. Gordon has said plenty of times, we have a lot of reserves. Would we be able to? We would have to change our policy in order to use our reserves to keep funding our public safety at a certain level. Let's say up until 2026, when a possible ballot measure by the council was put on the ballot.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So let me follow up, because I may be slow on the uptake on this one. So if there was a measure put on the ballot that raised the amount of funds that exceeded, and it was a special fund, right? It was set aside for sole purpose, say, for personnel, and we didn't incur those costs. That would be like another fund account that we would have. It would remain there until we needed it in the future, like we have in the special assessment districts, right? And it couldn't be used for other purposes, so it would just be used when we get to the point of needing those funds.
Well, no, I think the question that Councilmember Garcia was asking is that sort of once it shifts from being in the budget to being in a reserve, our current policy changes the ability to use the reserve, even if it is for even if it was raised for a specific purpose. Because of our policy, we've decided that reserves have a sort of a heightened use case.
It's like a CD.
So to do what Councilmember Garcia mentioned, we would have to then change the policy with respect to reserves generally, or that reserve specifically.
But if a fund passes and it is for a specific purpose, so it's like any other measure. It's like the special lighting districts. If you raise it for that, you couldn't move it. You couldn't move it into the general fund. You couldn't use it.
No, but I'm saying that I think the point that you were making, if I can speak for you, is that once it moved into reserve, it's almost, per our policy, is further restricted beyond just the initial restriction of, to your example, the personnel. Now it's only emergency personnel, because we've decided that reserves are only for emergency is probably the wrong word,
one-time
but
costs.
extraordinary is probably a better word.
Got it. So, but if it's dedicated to personnel,
It still is there.
then it would have to be
It would have to be extraordinary personnel. Yeah.
Or we
In
change
your
that.
example.
Or we change that.
Or the policy.
policy.
Yeah.
And it's changed by policy. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Any more questions?
Can I just, can I jump in real quick?
Please, yeah.
My impression of reserves are, or restricted reserves from the general fund, are that they are true rainy day funds, that they are for emergencies, like the 2011 windstorm we had. And after we went through that windstorm, we actually increased our reserve ratios because we kind of hit it tight during that 2011 thing. So this idea of we're going to use reserves somehow to fund public safety for a year or two, I suppose I could support it, but I think the general public might have a problem with that because they would say, well, why aren't you cutting here or adding or raising taxes here or doing something like that?
I just wanted to question.
Is that a question? Like, let's not veer into discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Did you have another question?
I did.
Before I interrupt you, sorry about that, Robert.
No. It's fine. Give me just a second. Oh, yes, now I remember. So if you have a special fund and it is for personnel, but you've got personnel split between the general fund and the special fund, you could, for the time period that you needed it, decrease what's in the general fund and use the special fund. So you could do the sliding scale to use everything you want, so you wouldn't have to create the reserve if you needed to, correct? Okay.
But sometimes it's nice to have, well.
Okay, yes. All right, public comment, which we might not have any.
No emails received on this topic. We do have a speaker card from David Gordon.
Okay.
This, the petition that's going around has a very, very worrying aspect to it, in that the money has to be used just for personnel. It's extremely bad public policy to raise taxes that can be used for a very specific purpose. I mean, if you want, for example, to use money for public safety, you want to buy 3 more fire engines and they're robotic and they use less people, you can't do it. Your hands are tied. Now, I can see that the people who are behind this want to have it because it puts money in the hands of 2 of the most powerful unions in California that we have to contend with as a result of having our own fire and police force. Is it possible to make sure that it is the case that if the money is raised specifically for personnel, you can use other means to reduce the general fund that you're using for public services? So you can use that money for something else. If that's the case, then what we're doing is tactically saying, listen, we're not going to get 2/3 of the citizens of Sierra Madre to agree to what we know we need, which is more money to pay for our fire and police force. So if we're doing this tactically, okay, we do it because we need the money. But we have to be absolutely sure that this money is not in a pot that can only be used for fire and police, and that they say, oh, you can't use any of your general funds to be diminished to make up for it. Because that would be extremely dangerous and very bad public policy. So if this ordinance goes through, the other question is it possible for council to change the wording of this ordinance so that it's for general purposes or public safety in general? I see.
No.
I see that, so in that case, the only way out is to make sure that you can say, okay, we've got this money coming in for personnel costs, good. That means the money we have in our general fund for personnel costs, we can now use for something else. That we can do that not only from a legal point of view, but in terms of a bargaining position with these very powerful unions who can spot what we'll be doing a mile away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. All right.
No other speaker cards.
Thank you. All right, so now discussion. Sorry, Jean.
Oh,
please.
okay.
Or Councilmember Goss.
I think we have enough money for the rainy day fund right now. We might have enough to fund public safety for this year, next year, 400,000, and year after that's a little over $1 million. I don't know about that. You know, I have no comments about the ballot initiative that's being presented to the public right now, but I think Mr. Gordon's analysis of it is probably correct. If it does pass, it does mean that we're going to have to kind of play games with the money in the general fund to be able to, pay Peter to pay Paul, something like that. I don't know what to say about this. I guess my thought is, people ask me whenever I talk about, taxes, people always ask me, why do we talk about taxes? Why aren't we talking about cutting spending? And so that's the first pushback I got when I heard about this ballot issue. People are saying, what's going on here? Why I haven't heard a thing about spending cuts. Well, we know we do zero-based budgeting. We know we're a pretty tight-fisted council, but we haven't done anything to demonstrate that we've squeezed all the blood out of the turnip from a public point of view. It seems to me like that's an effort that we need to do prior to any kind of tax. And I suppose if this ballot initiative gets on the ballot, it seems like that's something that probably ought to be out there for the public. They need to see that we have actually been as tight-fisted as I think we have been.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So I'll actually counter that, is that we actually did show a way to try to tighten the belt. And that was moving the concerts from Sunday to Monday. Because one of the reasons to move the concerts in the park from Sunday to Monday was to decrease overtime costs. And we heard very clear from the residents of the city that they wanted to have the concerts
Now you're confusing me with the facts, Robert. Don't do that.
So but your point I think is really well taken, and I really appreciate it. Is that one of the strengths of zero-based budgeting is that we everything gets wiped out at the beginning of the year, which makes it harder to make cuts because you build it from the bottom up every year. So at some level, we're a victim of our own success.
Yeah, so
the
biggest illustration of cuts, right? And I try to make this apparent during the forecasted budget, that we went from 4 or 5 FTEs in our fire department. Things were already tight then. Things were tight back in 2015, 2016. The increases in our revenue weren't that large. UUT on a compound annual growth rate, less than 3%. Property taxes, maybe a little bit more than 3%. But what we did is, with a tight budget already, we went from 5 FTEs in fire to 15 or 17 FTEs without asking for any more revenue. So how did we do that? We cut, yes.
Well, we did other things too, to be fair. I mean, we restructured our debt. I mean, we've done things. I think the issue is less about
accounting
is less about doing the things that you're talking about and showing.
Right.
Because again, my mantra is communication.
You're absolutely right.
Because if you think about what we did during the pandemic, and that we shut down hiring, did not fill positions, really bare bones, and then we were all excited because we had surpluses. Well, of course we had surpluses because we weren't spending any money and we were overtaxing our staff.
We're tapping reserves.
And we reconfigured our reserves. But I think it led to a sense from the public that we had turned things around fiscally, like we were in better fiscal shape, and we were, but that wasn't because we actually increased our revenue sources. It's because we cut and we restructured, and now we're at the point, to your point, where we don't have that to cut anymore. I mean, and now we actually probably need to backfill some of those positions that we didn't fill, and and stop overtaxing our staff because we're not in an emergency situation anymore, and we're asking them to do a lot with less, more with less, I guess is what we say. So, I mean that the problem is, you're right, that we haven't necessarily demonstrated that because we've just been surgical in doing it and making the best of what we had, but not necessarily publicizing that.
And our property taxes don't have any Sierra Madre specific taxes, whereas all our neighbors do. Not to say we have to do as our neighbors do, but we haven't had that ask ever. And so, I'm just, and to your point, you had that question. I was forward thinking, and maybe we could do. I can't remember what you said about special elections, or if there is even a 2025 election, but there would be a possibility for us to put something on the ballot as a fail-safe, right, that I would be willing to, because I know the residents here, and with a long enough education process, we would uncover everything, because that's what we do, right? We're honest and we uncover everything, that we would be able to have a successful 2026. That's kind of what I was thinking, and I wouldn't mind pushing into the reserves to make sure that our public safety knows that we support them 100%, because that is our purview, is to keep the residents safe, and we're willing to pull a little bit out to make sure that they understand that we're there for them.
Historically, the taxes, especially parcel taxes, have failed in non-presidential elections.
And that's exactly my concern.
Yeah.
Is that, you know,
When it's the only item on the ballot.
Yeah, when you change, you know, whether it's a
Who's
special
voting?
election in 2025 or even a non-presidential in 2026, it's a different voting public, or voting people that come in, and I think that's part of the thing that is going through my mind, and we definitely can't wait till 2028.
Well, we weren't on general elections until, 4 years ago, in Sierra Madre. We had our elections in April.
Right.
We were able to pass UUT.
Twice.
Actually, with a very high margin.
And defeat Measure D, all not in a presidential election.
Yeah, but they weren't new taxes either. They're continuation methods since
That's
1993.
why to me, the
Yeah.
education process is very important.
Well, UUT had to be new at some point.
1993.
The UUT education process was quite robust, and it took place over the better part of a year, right? Where we had, there was all kinds of public input.
Town halls.
Interaction, town halls, all kinds of discussion on the council. You had the UUT committee that you were on. Your activities were publicized, how you were holding the UUT accountable for where it was at. There were a lot of different moving parts. You're right, it took a while for people to get the idea that, hey, wait a minute, there could actually be a revenue issue here, you know?
So that's an interesting point. So let me turn this a little bit into a question. So if we wanted to be doing town halls on this, what's the lead time to try to do a town hall prior to
Mayor Pro Tem, I just want to make sure we're still on this agenda item.
Right.
Are we talking
Thank you,
about
stop me.
okay, potential revenue sources that we're on?
We could have town halls on potential revenue sources like we did for the UUT. Remember, it was an alternative, it was a town hall meeting
Did several.
discussing alternatives to revenues versus that UUT at the time.
I just want to make sure we're not talking about anything very specific here, and we're talking
No,
about.
I think it's in general. So what's the lead time for doing a town hall on any type of tax item? So whatever we would choose. What lead time does staff need for that?
I'd like to defer to our deputy city manager on that, if you could.
Using as a guide our most recent series of town hall meetings conducted in 2023, those were done over a course of about 6 months. We started in January with the Public Safety, Police, and Fire, and we ended up in June with our Public Works departments. And those were a series of educational town hall meetings intended to inform the public of what the city's finances and programs are.
That
Back
was for the
strategic plan.
Yeah, that's for
right?
strategic plan.
Yes.
Yes.
Back about 10 years ago when the city held the town hall forums, they were done over a series of several months, and a number of events that included all city staff, and evenings and weekends. There were workshops that solicited input from the community, and those went over a course of also several months and series of meetings.
So would we
What about
have
the
time
ones
to
for the
do-
measure, wait a minute, what about the ones for the measure for the Meadows project? Those we had 2 town hall meetings? Did we have?
Those were, the actual town halls, I think, were,
There was
you
one
talking-
at Sierra Madre Middle School.
that was you mean the joint
That was
meeting?
a meeting.
That was a joint meeting.
Oh, that was a meeting.
That was a meeting of the council. So I
Oh.
think to your point, we had our original meeting with the consultant in the summer, and it took at least 6 months to get that first town hall meeting, which was the public safety one.
You're talking about UUT or?
No, I'm talking about our strategic plan.
Okay.
So as you recall, we had in the, what's
Yeah.
now the EOC, I think we had that meeting in the
Right,
summer.
in the summer. Yeah, it was in June or something.
And
yeah.
we didn't have that first town hall until January.
So between now, if we wanted to put a measure on at this upcoming ballot, how many town halls could we have between now and election day? Could 2? Is it possible, or would we have only be able to? We're less than 6 months away from election day.
You know, if you're asking, it really depends on really council's priorities. Currently city staff, and maybe this is a better question for the city manager.
Yeah.
So this would be will heavily impact our finance department. And our finance department is pretty tied up until we're done with budget. So I think maybe August, depending on how many town halls council would like to have. But I think maybe August would be our first opportunity to have a town hall.
So if we wanted to have, say, 1 in September, say we want to have 2 in September, so let's say we want to have 2 town halls in September, and we wanted to do the analysis for a council initiative. Does staff have the bandwidth to do that? I understand that we'd be taxing them. So I recognize that at the top.
Are we, I feel like maybe we're veering into something too specific.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean,
We'll be back.
I think, well, maybe you could just answer the question and we can end the conversation.
Yeah, we'll move on.
I think 2 town hall meetings in September would be possible.
Okay, thank you.
So this was a discussion item. I think it's obviously spurred quite a bit of discussion. I don't think there's any formal action to be taken. Does anybody else have anything they want to raise before we close discussion?
Just a quick question too, I didn't think about this before, and the discussion item is, we do have the grant writers now. There's a lot of grants out there right now for personnel, for especially for fire and police personnel to keep our city safe, because they understand the costs have gone up. You look at LA City alone and what they're looking at in terms of having to reduce their personnel just to try to keep people safe. So there were a lot of grants, and I keep looking at this, and even if we used the resources to get a grant, those grants pay for our grant writers. They write into it, so the revenue that we could get from that would outweigh the cost of what it's costing us to pay for our grant writers. In fact, 2 of the ones I looked at covered the grant writer and the maintenance.
That's a fair point, and you talked a little bit about grants, depending on what the source is, if it was state or federal, but I guess personally, my concern about grants is it's not it's like a one-time, it's not sustainable.
No, absolutely, but I'm thinking of the changes that we have in our mountainside, and the fact that we are not in compliance with CAL FIRE's new fire codes. We're not going to be able to be in compliance in a lot of our areas because we just can't do it. And a lot of people don't know that education. We don't have the personnel to send out to educate, to do the brush clearance education and such. So those types of things we don't need to continue forever, but definitely in the next year or 2, those are going to be huge changes that we see. And we're looking at, we're talking more about the homeless coming in and all these things that are starting to come in that don't necessarily need to be sustainable, but they get us started on making new systems that our departments need to keep us safe.
That's fair for a special project, but I think my understanding of this discussion was that it was more about ongoing revenue to support public safety.
Yeah.
But yes, I hear you. Any money is good money.
One of the concerns with those type of grants is typically they would fund a position for 2 years. Then the city would be responsible for funding ongoing, including unfunded liabilities. So yes, it would get the position funded, but if we don't have a secure funding source for the future,
correct,
then it creates a huge liability.
Again, keeping us till 2026 when we see the deficit.
So going back, why we called this to an agenda item. Thank you so much for getting it done so quickly. you were sitting at the dais back in 2015, Councilmember Goss, and I was at that lectern saying, the UUT is not going to cut it. This is a Band-Aid. This was 2015. We have revenue source issues here in this city, and we need to address them. And then that begs the question, well, you've been on the council for 2.5 years. Why haven't you done anything? Well, we had the Meadows project and all that to contend with, and then the library to and my goal was to obviously bring this up because it's the right thing to do. But it kind of got fast forwarded because time goes by and we ran out of revenue a little quicker than I anticipated. So my point was that UUT was not a sustainable vehicle for our revenue source. Because there's revenue aversion. You can decide to make a decision in the marketplace and not pay it, right, by having solar or taking your phone and going to VoIP or all kinds of ways that you can avoid. And also, energy prices don't track with wages and salaries. But wages and salaries tend to have a smooth increase, so do CPIs and ECIs and things of that nature through time. We've had a little bit of high inflation the last couple of years, but that being said, is the responsible thing to do is have a revenue source in place to make sure that our city is fully funded. And I think our purview is public safety first and foremost, which includes our fire and our police and water, right? Because a public safety issue is making sure our residents have safe, clean drinking water. Everything else to the soft issues that we've heard from residents are obviously crazy important. That's why we live here. But we need to fund our public safety at a responsible rate. We're not. None of us are saying, nor are they asking for the highest pay in LA County. That's not what's going on here. So we need to fully fund our public safety, and we need to fully fund our city to the expectations of our residents. And so regardless of where the money's going, it has to come from somewhere. And that was the reason I wanted to make sure that we uncovered all the options outside of what others in the community are doing. So that's all I really have to say on that.
Councilmember Garcia, if I may add, to your point, we went from 4 firefighters to 17. And last year, in an effort to prevent the loss of our fire department, because we had a mass exodus and we could not hire a firefighter paramedic.
And let me interject, and I know where you're going. I am grateful for those staff members that did not leave because of the actions of this council and staff.
As we all are. We took the necessary step to secure that fire department, but it came at a cost.
Yeah.
And that cost accelerated the rate that now we have, now in the position that we're in now. But it was a necessary step that we had to take.
And I commend that with both departments, especially because
Yes.
I've lived in Sierra Madre for 50 years now, and I've never seen our departments fully staffed. I've never seen us not be the training camp where we hire great people. They get great, amazing training here, and they leave for higher paid departments. And now we sustain everybody. We're hiring people to come in, recruiting. We're maintaining all our fully staffed departments, and we've never seen that before.
And that's worth a lot.
Yes.
That's worth a lot to the public here in the city. They understand that.
But that explains the gap that you were saying, that that we didn't expect when we were talking about surpluses 2 years ago, we certainly weren't thinking about deficits as soon as 4 or 5 years in the future from then, and now 2 or 3 years from now. So everybody knows everything's more expensive right now. So our budget has been further constrained by not just labor costs but all costs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing that's important on this is that this isn't a Sierra Madre issue, right? I mean, we look at what we were able to do during the pandemic. We didn't fund positions, but we didn't lay people off, right? We were very fortunate to lay people off. I'm hearing from my peers in other cities that this oncoming train is not coming straight to Sierra Madre. It's coming to every city, every community across the country. We're going to be seeing the same type of challenges in many other places across the state and across the country.
All right.
And that's
On that happy note.
Go, Madre.
Wah, wah, wah. All right, so, no action to take on this, and then I guess we are down to whether or not, this or other discussion tonight, or otherwise we have future agenda items to suggest. And I'm sorry, can we remind the council and the city what our summer schedule is? I know I had a discussion with the city manager, but I just want to make sure that it's clear that I think we decided to have no meetings in August?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the plan.
So we have to vote on that still, don't we?
No,
Hasn't
I
that
think we did.
Have we voted on it?
I thought we did. Oh. Oh, okay.
Because last summer we departed from that.
Right, and then I think we had a discussion and we asked for you to get staff feedback, and so that's the feedback you got from staff, and so we still need to put that on the agenda. Okay.
I'm not sure if this needs to be an agenda item, but a nice report on the updates on what we do with homeless in our town, because we are seeing an increase right now. Fire department transported 3 this last week, and PD's been working really well at helping the homeless find places to live not in our park. And with summer coming up, we definitely don't want to have camps anywhere with our high fire severity danger with a lot of growth from the rain.
Right.
So just a report on what we do.
In building on the bear stuff, I'd like to get a report from PD on the bear encounters that we've had. It was a very compelling conversation from the Alcorns and somewhat disturbing. And maybe even combining that with the bear containers. I think they go together, but I've had residents say to me that they don't use their bear containers because they don't work. And actually I went to use mine today and I had to give an extra jiggle to it to get it to lock into place. So the technology there, I think we're hearing some feedback from residents that this is nice, but they're not actually working. And I'd like to have a discussion on that.
Can I ask a question about that? They're not using them because they're not locking?
Right.
But the other cans don't lock either, so I guess I'm not clear on why they wouldn't use a can.
Because it's hard to open and shut.
Okay, that's different, that's different.
Well, I mean, if they're not working, why use that extra effort to try to put your trash down?
Sorry, I wasn't connecting that dot.
It's not locking, so
Plus they're heavy, very heavy.
Okay, thank you.
Busted my shin on one the other day.
Oh, no, sorry.
Well, on that note, I think this could be part of the same thing. I was wondering if we had an update on whether or not the state was going to fund our conflict managers from the Fish and Wildlife.
Yes, thank you.
That definitely.
That seems all kind of related. Anything else? And you know what motion I would
Move to
encourage.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.